so that we will know when to call on. I will call this Planning Commission meeting to order. It is Tuesday, May 6th at 6 o'clock. Thank you all for being here. This meeting may also be viewed on Channel 20 and is available on live streaming on the city's website and on www.slow-span.org. Members of the public may provide public comment during the meeting by calling 805-321-6639. The phone line is now open, and I will remind those of you tuning in remotely that what's happening in this room is about 45 seconds ahead of what you're seeing. So please call in now. You can just hang out and listen to the live version on the phone, but it will be ahead of what you're seeing on your screen. So just be aware. Ms. Ratana, please call the roll. Oh, sorry, I skipped over the flag salute. I will lead you in the flag. I haven't had to do that in a while. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And now, Ms. Ratana, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoffman?
Here.
Commissioner Holden?
Here.
Commissioner Halverson?
Here.
Vice Chair Swift?
Here.
And Chairman?
Here. Thank you very much. At this time, the Planning Commission will review the order of business to be conducted. That would be this. And receive requests for or make announcements regarding any changes in the order of the day. The Commission should, by motion, adopt the agenda as presented or revised. Are there any changes to the agenda from the Commissioners? Seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as is.
And do I have a second?
I second.
This is a voice vote. So all in favor of approving the agenda as it is, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. And I will remind folks coming in the room to please fill out a speaker slip if you'd like to speak at any of the public comment opportunities, and give that to Clerk Ratana. Okay. Moving on to this, we will have at least three, possibly four opportunities for public comment, the first of which happens now, so public communications. This is, so during this time, the Commission allows public communication. Any member of the public may address the Commission for a period not to exceed 3 minutes total on any item of interest that is not on the agenda. So please check your agenda items. And within the jurisdiction of this Commission. The Commission will listen to all communications. However, in compliance with the Brown Act, the Commission cannot act on items that are not on the agenda. Where is my gavel? I will open public communications at this time. Do we have anyone who would like to speak on a general item? And if you would please give your slip to Clerk Ratana. And if you have just come in, please do fill out a slip for her. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Brenda Auer. I have some real concerns over what we're going to discuss tonight, but on that note, I got to the privilege of watching Matt Bronson today talk to, I don't know, somebody at the Board of Real Estate. It was a class my daughter, who's a new agent, took to learn about the city government. She's 26. Her takeaway was it was an 8th grade government class. It was interesting. Matt was asked directly, why was our water not safe? Why could we not drink it? He did that song and dance he does all the time, you know? Oh, it was a president event, never happened before, but we're glad everybody joined together. But he never gave us any answers. Y'all are on the planning department. I saw some brown water up in Arroyo Grande week before. We had water problems running down the street. It was in between a Briscoe and Elm or Elm. I'll give you the street if you're interested, but I think we should ask, where did the problem come from? Was it from the new construction? Was it from the building? Did somebody make an error? I mean, think about it. If Central Coast Blue tries to come back, do we want anybody else messing with our aquifer more than it got messed with last week? Thank you. And I just want you to know, I am really happy that our new council's listening. I pray that the planning puts smiles on their faces and get happy too. Life is good, and we live in a great place. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. I have another person for general public communication. Is Robert Newton here, please? Yes. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Dr. Newton.
I'm sorry.
Thanks for having this meeting. I'm really concerned about all of this mania to build all the way up Grand Street with these 55-foot buildings. It has issues of sunlight, and in sunlight you have issues of mental and physical health, and there's also been shown that the more sunlight there is, the better people will treat each other and interact with each other. So aside from that, I can see that the parking allocations for those buildings is inadequate, and they'll allow street parking, and yet the offices and the restaurants and stuff down on the bottom floor, there won't even be places for people to come in and park and use that kind of thing. So it just doesn't, I don't know, I'm really upset. I don't think you guys get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Dukas, North Grover Beach. I've been out talking with residents the last couple months that these buildings have been reaching into the sky, and no one is happy about it. There's no parking. It's going to be, I've been here for 25 years, and you guys keep doing this over and over and over again. You put in structures that are untenable. Nobody can park, nobody has a life, they can't do their groceries, their family can't visit them, and you're going to put another one of them on Long Branch, one of the streets that has the biggest traffic problems and parking that there is. Unbelievable. You're so short-sighted that you are doing a disservice to the public, the people of the city of Grover Beach. I want to know from every one of you, how many citizens did you talk to before you approved those buildings? How many citizens, how many community people did you go out and talk to and say, hey, you want a 55-foot building at 4th and Grand that's going to do nothing but cause mayhem and chaos? Did you ask anybody that? The south-facing wall on the almost completed building has 0 architectural features. 0. There are windows and a white gigantic wall where there used to be blue sky. And that's what you did to your neighbors. You did this to your neighbors, and you're going to continue doing this to your neighbors. Where a woman retires and wants to open up a window and see blue sky, she's going to get a wall with no setbacks, no awnings, no features, no wrought iron, no nothing. That is the worst. That is beginning architectural design. That's one thing you don't do. And so you do such a disservice to your people when you allow this to happen. We hear that there's all these other buildings coming. You need to put a moratorium until you contact your citizens and you start talking to them. Quit talking to the builders and developers. They got exactly what they wanted, and you allowed it to happen. So no more. Stop everything, start talking to your people, get out in the streets, go out there and see what you have done.
Thank you. If I could have your slip, or if you could give that to Clerk Ratana. And again, if anyone has come in since I last said it, there's an opportunity to get a slip at the back there if you'd like to speak. We are currently in the public communications part, which is items not on the agenda. Next, I have Randall, I believe it's Myrick? Myrick. The specific agenda item is everything, so let's hear what you have to say. Thank you.
I've been here all my life. I'm a retired mechanical contractor. It's plumbing. In 1975 and 76, I helped my uncle put some of the sewer laterals in. You have a trunk line, laterals go off the side. Some guy with a big brain decides that there used to be two gas stations where those condominiums are going right now, 7-Eleven one and the other one. Gas stations with two toilets on them, men's and women's, and a sink. So all of a sudden, somebody rezones them, apparently, puts these buildings, we're going to have a water problem and a sewage problem. If now we got a motel, if everybody flushes at this, you can't control, what are you going to tell one guy not to flush his toilet at 2 like they do on the air conditioning? It's like they're brainless. I mean, if you need to have people that know about construction helping you guys. I mean, this is obviously, and they want to redo the whole sewer, but because he rezoned, he's making it bigger, but telling people it's clay pipe, you can't hurt unless, the laterals can, because roots can go into it, but that's the homeowners or the property owner's problem, not the city's, when it gets on their property. The sidewalks are common areas, meaning that owns by the city. He's trying to make property owners pay for have a sidewalk in front of their house, so we're walking out in the street. And shorten it up right here, you can make builders, like other ones, how do you think Barry Gardens, the park, the builder put that stuff in to help out, to show how he appreciates building in the city. We're cutting down trees, the builder's not giving us anything except irritating us. And it doesn't go on stories, it's how many feet you go up. You have to, the Coastal Commission, I'm surprised they haven't stopped this. He buys a $4 million fire engine, tells us because you can't work on the other one. You steer it in the back and steer it in the front. I measured the middle part. It's not going to be able to maneuver on our streets unless everybody's in the driveway. He did it because of these buildings. Instead of just telling the truth, he's another liar right there. That guy doesn't tell the truth either. He says I own my whole street, a quarter mile long by 60 foot wide, that I own it. He shows me a plan that's 125 years old and tells me I own it. I'm glad he's here. You can't even look at me. But when you get lied to for 7 years like I have, been here my whole life, I get angry. These people don't have any idea what you guys are trying to do. The sewer's going to keep raising the prices. He wants to turn sewage into drinking water. Come on. But when we're going to have another dry spell, and Lopez is going to sink the levels of it, and you stop building. You don't add it when you have water problems. He passes it during a pandemic. Nobody can complain about it. The guy's like buying poor little those little shops are going out of business. Restaurants are going out of business. This street's taking like 8 months longer? 8 months longer.
Thank you, Mr.
God, I feel
Myrick.
good. All right, thank you.
I'm glad you came. Thank you very much. Our next speaker that I have, which does not have an agenda item assigned to it, so I will assume it's for public communication, is Sylvia Bower. That's fine.
Hi, Sylvia Boyer, long-time resident of Grover Beach. Lived here my whole life in 5 cities. I have several things to talk about. One is the wall that is for the new building that's being built currently. It would be really great if we could put a mural on that wall, if we can find the budget to do that, but not a local artist, like an actually professional artist. And maybe the city can actually vote on what it's going to look like. Because I've seen some of the choices of Grover Beach, and we could do better. Then also, the guy who's building these buildings, I believe he's in a major lawsuit. So I'm curious as to what happens if, a lot of his houses are falling down in San Luis Obispo. I have a friend who's personally going through it right now. Her house is splitting apart, and he's not fixing it. She tried to get him to give her a different house, and he refused to do it. So all of these buildings that are going up, You know, if he gets sued and he goes bankrupt, where are we going to end up with empty buildings? I mean, there's empty buildings on Grand Avenue that are stuck. So there's that. So I think we could do better with the people we're choosing to do building in our beach town. It's a beach town, guys. This isn't a crappy place in the middle of the desert that nobody cares about. So there's that. And then I've been to LA. I've tried to park in LA. I've seen people parking in their yards because they can't park anywhere. We have an opportunity to do it right, and it's not being done right. You guys are building these buildings right up against the sidewalk. It looks like crap. And you could have had a little bit more room to put some greenery there, make it look nice, and you didn't do it. You just said, whatever, do whatever you need to do. 5 stories was never, ever anything that anybody wanted. None of the beach towns that I've been to that are nice have 5-story buildings. They always have little cute buildings. I just was in San Diego at Mission Beach. Not one single building was 5 stories there. And it's a nicer beach than our beach. So what happens is and then who's buying these $930,000 homes with no parking? Am I going to have my husband, is he going to park on the street? Or is my daughter going to park on the street and walk in the middle of the night? Like, what is happening here? This is not LA. This is not San Francisco. I think Pismo has been putting that everywhere. So I would ask that we just take a step back and really consider who we're doing business with and what we want this to look like and who is getting the payoff. So, I mean, and I mean that in several ways. And that's all I have to say. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you very much for your time and your comments. Next, I have Vasily Sidorenko.
Hi, Vasily here. New to one of these, so excuse me if I don't know all the particularities. Mainly, I kind of want to echo some of the sentiments, mostly about the buildings. I think if I think of all the places that people enjoy to spend time in, if you look at Avila, downtown, if you look at San Luis Obispo is probably a little bit different, but the most enjoyable places that people actually want to walk and be pedestrians in, I think are centered around the people that they cater to. They're not centered around real estate development. And I do echo the sentiment too that if we're building luxury condos in the best real estate that Grover Beach has to offer, I agree with the fact that it's not really representative of what the citizens like. I go down to the beach with my daughter all the time, and I've always thought, oh, it'd be so neat if this, lot got developed into, something like Avila. And then when I found out that it was just going to be giant condo buildings, it kind of just puts a whole damper on, the perceived future of the downtown area. And I think too, I also, I had 2 parents that were architects, and I think the clean modern architecture style is, like, it has its place, but I think it's been overdone so much so that no place, it doesn't look like anything anymore. It looks like a building that, you have no idea if you're in a beach town, if you're in California, you don't know where you are. Whereas if you take downtowns in Europe, in any place that people like to gather, it has a flavor, it has an architecture, it has a style. There's not just a reduction of style. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Jeff Boer.
Hello, Jeff Boyer here. So speaking on the, some of the building that's been going on, I think like everyone is tonight, I would definitely agree with the last person that spoke that, there's, I understand we gave up some of our ability to kind of interject what we wanted from builders here, and I think maybe that was done in an attempt to get builders more interested in building here. And, I think that was a huge mistake. I also think that, the height of the buildings was also a huge mistake. Me personally, as a longtime resident here, I've been here about 17 years. I prefer a dirt lot to a 5 or 6 story building like what we have now. I guess there's, contention about what actually constitutes a 5-story versus a 6-story building. When you have the peak of the actual building itself, which is the elevator shaft going up what appears to be 6 stories, you drive by and it looks like a 6-story building. That's what I see every time I drive by, and I see that peak of that elevator up there. It just looks like the building's big middle finger to the rest of Grover Beach. That's what that elevator shaft always looks like to me on both of those buildings. So, as we get ready to build the new building and approve that, whatever, I understand there's going to be changes. That changes happen, but I agree the architectural style is abysmal for the area. It's generic. It looks like a building that came from IKEA. Honestly, it just is. It's not an attractive architectural style. So, it also doesn't match the other buildings that are over there that are going to be staying, that actually have a nice style to them. I was driving past there today, and you have the building that has the nice bridge that goes across, and it's just those higher story buildings. They're actually really attractive architecture, and then you have this newer style that's getting put in here, and it just doesn't look like anything. So that's just my 2 cents to just think about the community. Just try to maintain some character in Grover Beach. Try to keep us from being, industrialized looking. Try to keep it beach town, which is what we all are here for, right? I mean, that's why we live at the beach and not in the valley anymore. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you very much. The only other slips that I have are for item 3. Is there, okay, great. So is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak for this opening public communication? I see one more person, please. And if you've got a slip, if you could hand that to
I will. And
Clerk
thanks for the
Cortana.
opportunity. I wanted to actually speak on something on the consent agenda, so I didn't know if you're going to open that up or not.
Yes, after public communications.
Okay, then I'll cede this spot.
Okay, which is coming up straight away. But first, we will go to the phone lines. Is there anyone, so assuming that's the end of or not the end of people, my goodness, the end of that part of our public communication from folks in the room, is there anyone on the phone line who wanted to speak for the opening public communication? Okay. In that case, I will use, the pen is mightier than the sword, right? Close public communication, and we will move on to the consent agenda. So, is there any member of the public who wishes to address the commission on any of the items on the consent agenda? And if you are at home, the number to call into is 805-321-6639. And so if you would like to speak on the consent agenda, this is the time to do that.
Thank you. I didn't quite understand that. Oops. Put the microphone back together.
Oh, I have to gavel it open, sorry. It's open. My gavel.
So I wanted to speak on where is it here? The general plan report for Capital Improvement Program Community Development. Anyway, and it is on consent. And my concern was I took a look at that, and then I took a look at the issue approved in June 2024, in which the city said that approved a development impact fee nexus study, and then went on to say that that nexus study is based on our capital improvement program. So I looked at both of them. I couldn't find any nexus between them. The accounts had different numbers, they had different names, the amounts of money were different, the projects were different, and the reason I think it's really important is that it states, and was passed by the City Council, that the public facilities and improvements are divided into several categories, and there are about 5 or 6 of them, but that the objective of them of the development impact fee program that was approved is to ensure that new development pays the capital costs associated with growth. When I looked at all the projects, I could see very few times where there was any funding by development impact fees. So as a city, we've said we want new development to pay its way, but none of the documents make it understandable. None of the documents show that it is paying its way. I don't think we have any clue what we're getting in terms of development impact fees. So I wanted to ask you as a board to ask the city to come back with something that we can all understand and that we can determine whether or not it meets the stated goals and the approved goals of the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who wanted to speak to the items on the consent agenda? I don't see any hands going up. Is there anyone on the line that wanted?
No, there's not.
Okay, then I will close public comment for the consent agenda. And I will invite a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Without discussion? Or
If
without
you-
recommendation to pull an item and discuss?
If you would like to pull an item, I believe you can make a motion to do so, and then we vote on it. I believe that's how that
Can I
works.
ask a question of, is this Martin?
Of staff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fine. It's just if you wanted to discuss amongst yourself, it should be pulled and heard separately.
Mike, please. Mike. Your mic.
Thank you. I'm not Mike, I'm Dave. Yeah, I guess my question is to you, and maybe it's also to Mr. Ray, is there any value in answering Ms. Peterson's question here as far as how the DIF is being applied to CIPs, and in the draft report that it doesn't show any of the DIFs being broadly applied to CIPs. Is that something that's appropriate to discuss here, or is that?
Happy to provide clarification if it helps you to make a decision to either pull and have a further discussion, or to move on and vote for the consent agenda. Mr. Greg Ray, our Public Works Director, is here and can answer any questions I'm unable to answer. But ultimately, the Nexus study that Ms. Peterson referenced was taken into consideration in developing the formula that created our development impact fees that were passed last June and July and went into effect in October. And so all of that information is available on our website. You can review it there to see kind of how that all was put together and developed. The tables that are referenced in the draft CIP packet that your commission reviewed prior to this meeting is just that. It's in draft form, and a final version will go to the council at a later agenda date. So those tables reference a 0, for example, next to the transportation DIF line item, and it doesn't mean that the DIF pot is 0. It just means that $0 will come from that transportation DIF into that CIP project. So again, the tables that are referenced within the draft CIP is just showing where the money will come from to fund those projects. And so if there's a 0, it just means that that project will not take any funds from those DIFs, from those DIF categories. Again, if you'd like additional information on how our development impact fees were updated last year in 2024, you can go to our website, and under our programs page on the community development website, it outlines everything and has every document that was prepared for that purpose. And I welcome Mr. Ray to approach and provide any additional clarification should you need it.
Excuse me, good evening, Honorable Chair and Commission. If you had any additional clarifications you'd like to hear, but I think Ms. Martin kind of touched on the most important thing to understand about the capital improvement program is it's a broad plan laid out over a number of years, 5 years, and it includes essentially expenditures. It's not meant to be a budgetary document in terms of defining accounts, specific amounts in those accounts. It's really how much money are we allocating for specific projects. So if, for example, you take a particular development impact fee, that account, which you find in the budget, is accruing money over time as development occurs, and then at some time in the future, a project will pick that money up and allocate it toward something in particular, street project, a facility, a construction project or something. But if you don't see it in particular in this 5-year CIP, it just means that either those funds have been expended down to a point where there's no project that's appropriate for them, or that there's no project immediately coming up that could survive on that funding alone, most likely, and therefore it's waiting for other sources of funds before that money is allocated.
Okay, so is there a place where the public can go to see the accounting for the funds that are collected from developers and where they're being spent?
I don't know that the records are online, but you're more than welcome to call our Administrative Services Department and speak with our Director, Nick Zamet, and he would be more than happy to produce that information for you. I think also as it relates to the CIPs in particular, you can reach out to our Capital Improvement Program Manager, Erin Wiggin, and request any information that she may have regarding how those funds are being allocated to the different CIP projects.
Right.
This will also be presented to the council at an upcoming council agenda. Do you know the date specifically? Is it
For the
for the
approval,
CIP?
we're talking June, and I don't know the specific date, but it'll be in June.
But you'll be able to see the finalized document at that council meeting and on that agenda.
You're talking about the capital improvement plan?
Correct.
Right.
And I think just one thing to keep in mind for your commission, this evening your decision is whether or not the CIP projects themselves, not their funding, are in compliance with their general plan. And the staff report outlines that staff believes and recommends that your commission find them in compliance with the general plan, in
Yeah.
conformance with the general plan.
I think we get that. It's just, it was an issue that was brought up, obviously, and aroused our curiosity. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So, are we ready to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Clerk Ratana, would you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Swift,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Halverson,
Yes.
and Chairman.
Yes, the motion passes unanimously. We now go to our public hearing items, and I'm just going to flip my agenda over to make sure I've got everything in order here. We have one, possibly two, public hearing items, depending on how the first one goes. And as a reminder, if you would like to call in for public comment on an item, please call in at 805-321-6639. And what's happening in the room is about 45 seconds ahead of where if you're watching at home through the slow span. So just be aware of that and call in. All right, item number 3 is development application INT-25-0001. And we will hear from, the title, which, let me find that here. Do I have it here? I don't see the title listed here. Would you mind reading the title of
Sure. This is a Planning
Yes.
Commission interpretation request regarding height exceptions for elevator towers.
And I will invite Community Development Director Martin to present the staff report.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Tonight we'll be reviewing a request for interpretation of the Development Code to allow for a use permit process for elevator towers to exceed a maximum height of 8 feet. This request is associated with a development project located at 305 Long Branch Avenue. However, the outcome, this interpretation would affect projects citywide. In 2022, Peak Wi-Fi received approval for a 3-story mixed-use industrial building. The Peak Wi-Fi is the applicant that kind of sparked the policy interpretation request. When they submitted their building plans, it showed that the elevator tower exceeded the maximum height limit by an additional 5 feet. The elevator shaft would exceed the 8-foot maximum height pursuant to code, and architectural features are allowed to exceed that 8-foot maximum through a use permit approval. So this interpretation would allow the applicant to apply for a use permit to request an additional 5 feet for the elevator shaft, which would provide elevator access to the approved rooftop deck. Under Development Code Section 1.20050, that's Rules of Interpretation, the director has the authority to interpret any provision of the Development Code. However, that authority is limited to interpreting the code as it's written and does not extend granting myself the privilege of procedural discretion or exceptions beyond those limits. So as such, the director may refer, again pursuant to Chapter 1 of our Development Code, refer any issue of interpretation to your commission. A referral is appropriate when the code does not clearly establish a mechanism for addressing unique or unforeseen circumstances. The Development Code establishes maximum height for a property based on the underlying zone. For example, the subject property at 305 Long Branch Avenue is zoned coastal industrial, which has a maximum building height of 40 feet. The Development Code also provides for certain exceptions for features to exceed the maximum height of a zone. For instance, architectural features may exceed the maximum height limit with approval through a use permit. Architectural features include a steeple, tower, cupola, monument, or similar unoccupied architectural feature. Elevator and stair towers, with the most recent Development Code update in 2022, were distinguished separately from architectural features and defined as follows: that an elevator or stairway to a rooftop deck or upper story that's no more than 100 square feet in area must be set back from any building edge by at least 5 feet, and that the maximum height limit by up to 8 feet, subject to approval of a modification to standards. So what you can see here is that that use permit approval process was not carried over to elevator, shaft, or stairways. So the previous Development Code in 2019, so prior to the 2022 adoption, it had 2 exceptions to height limits. It was architectural features and telecommunication facilities. So what staff supposes, because our team wasn't here when the 2022 code update went through, but what we suppose is that this may have been an unintended gap, that when they split out the distinction between architectural features and elevator towers, that use permit process may have just been an oversight, but should have been applied. So the 2022 Development Code does not provide a discretionary mechanism to approve elevator shafts, as I've just described, to exceed that 8-foot height. However, other architectural features may, subject to the use permit approval. My supposition is that this is a discrepancy, and prior to the 2022 amendments, height exceptions for structures such as chimneys, cupolas, and mechanical equipment were allowed through use permit approval. So it is reasonable to assume that that should have been applied and was not. So I've determined that the placement of the elevator shaft within the project site is also exempt from the additional 5-foot setback due to the following findings: that the elevator shaft meets the intent of the code as it's located internal to the project site and approximately 127 feet from the public street. And your determination for this evening is a policy clarification to staff and how we apply this citywide. Do we uphold the Development Code as it's written, or do we afford the use permit process that we afford to architectural features to also apply to elevator towers? This would effectively allow 305 Long Branch and the Peak Wi-Fi project to exceed that height limit of 8 feet by an additional 5. So with that, staff recommends that your commission adopt a resolution providing that policy clarification and direct staff to address the procedural gap between architectural features and elevator shafts with the next Development Code update. And so what I mean by that is, should your commission decide that a use permit process is appropriate, with the next Development Code amendments that we bring back to your commission, you would see that change included as part of those revisions. And with that, concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have. And I'd also like to let you know that we have representatives from Peak Wi-Fi, as well as we have our building official on the line should you have any questions regarding the mechanical needs of elevators.
Thank you very much. So the first part of this, the commissioners will have a chance to ask questions of staff. Then we will go to the public hearing, and then commissioners will have a chance to discuss amongst ourselves. So that's the direction we're going. So let us open it up for commissioners to ask questions of staff. And I will start, I have my alphabetical list, with Commissioner Halverson. The 3 H's.
All right, I know. I guess I missed when I was reading through the slide, 2 slides actually before this, when you talked about the limit of 5, let me see. You said that for heights above 8 feet, the commission would be limited to allowing 5 additional feet? Did I mishear that?
No, sorry. So anything above 8 feet would require a use permit approval by your commission.
And there's no limit, we could make it 20 feet if we wanted to?
If the applicant could justify the need for the 20 feet.
I misheard what you said then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But for this project specific that kind of triggered this policy interpretation request, it would be an additional 5 feet.
I understand. That's why it triggered me, because it seemed to match. Okay. Well, I guess I don't have any other questions regarding this item. I think it is probably, well, this is discussion, so never mind. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Moving on, Commissioner Hoffman.
No questions.
Commissioner Holden.
No questions.
Vice Chair Swift.
I have questions. Can you go back to your slide that showed the couple of pieces of code, the development code there? So the architectural features can exceed the height limit by up to 8 feet. So if the zone has a building height limit, an architectural feature can exceed the height limit by up to 8 feet, subject to approval of modification of standards.
Correct.
And for the elevator shafts, they're given an additional 8 feet for elevators and stairs above the normal height limit for the zone, with no exception, right? That is the standard, is that you have a height for the zone, and then if you have roof access, you have an additional 8 feet above the zone limit for elevator shafts and stairs.
Procedurally, both are afforded the 8 feet through modification to standards. Architectural features is given an additional mechanism to go above and beyond the 8 feet through use permit approval. That 8 feet of additional space that's needed for the elevator would be to only access the last story that's within the building. It would not provide rooftop access. It would only be to house the mechanical equipment necessary to access, in this case, for peak Wi-Fi, the 3rd floor. And the additional 8 feet would house the mechanical equipment to get that elevator to the 3rd floor, but it would not provide sufficient space to access the approved rooftop deck. That is why we feel that it's appropriate to allow for the discretion, for your commission to have the discretion to consider a use permit on a case-by-case basis for circumstances just as this.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around the intent on both of them. Is that there's sort of a given in either case, 1 or 4, that there's 8 feet allowed, and then anything above the 8 feet requires a use permit for the architectural as it's written, but that caveat is not in.
It is not afforded to elevator shafts, which arguably, from an engineering standpoint, as well as structural and mechanical, you need that additional space in an elevator to access the roof. You're mandated to allow for anyone and everyone to capably access the roof through ADA standards, Americans with Disabilities Act standards. So we technically are required to provide access to that rooftop deck. And as I mentioned earlier, it is an approved rooftop deck. This is an approved project. They're just asking for one modification to account for that accessibility that, unfortunately, pursuant to our change in code, again, I believe was an unintended gap that was left. And we just didn't afford that same use permit language to be applied to elevator, shaft, or stairway.
So how did 401 and 402
Great question.
do this? Did they just live within the height by having a lower floor height for the roof deck floor?
So the maximum allowable height along West Grand Avenue in most locations is 55 feet, and their elevator tower is below the 55 feet. So I don't have their exact ceiling heights for each floor, but yes, they're required. But they could have built up to 55 feet and then had, pursuant to this code, an elevator shaft that could then go up an additional 8 feet. So that's 63 feet.
And then if they had tacked on the mechanicals, they would have come back and asked for the same.
I would
challenge
hope
here.
that they would have asked for it from the very beginning. But yes, if they ran into that and your commission were to modify this section, they would have the opportunity to request that use permit, correct? And just making sure it's understood, this is a 10 by 10 area only. This would not be afforded to anything greater than that. So we're not looking to change the 100 square foot in area that's currently listed on that, that's currently listed in the standard. That's the rooftop deck, upper story open space that's no more than the elevator itself that's no more than 100 square feet in area and set back from any building edge by 5 feet.
And so that 100 is exclusive of each feature, not 100 cumulative. So they get 100 square feet for the stairwell access and 100 square feet for the elevator access.
Well, if the stairwell itself is located on the opposite side of the building, we would still apply it, we would apply it independently. But if they were combined, that might be something that myself as the director could interpret to say, you can go above and beyond that, because otherwise it would have been two independent components of the building. They serve two totally different functions for the building.
But the way it's written, it says an elevator or stairway to a rooftop
Correct.
deck or upper story open
So the
space.
elevator or the stairway, or if they're both there, would be afforded that 100 square feet, but no more. And then if they were combined for any reason, which sometimes they are, but if they were combined for any reason, we would take a look at that if that was part of the application. But I would assume for each and the needs that are outlined in our building code, that we would apply that 100 square feet to each component for the function of the building. You couldn't fit both into 100 square feet.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it looks like they would both be roughly 10 by 10.
Correct.
And so the cumulative for a rooftop access is 200 square feet. And so it's not a no more than, it's a no more
It's
than
not an
for
and
each
statement.
one.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
All right. I think I've asked all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Swift. I do also have some questions. I want to, the way that I interpreted this resolution is that a yes vote will ensure that these things come before this planning commission and have a public hearing because they will need a use permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
And a no vote means that is not required to get a use permit. But what does it mean? Does it just mean that this? Yeah, so then maybe help me understand what the modification of standards is. Is that something that we vote on and comes before us, or that's something that staff determines?
You can. Certain modifications to standards are left with the discretion of the director themselves, but other modifications to standards require planning commission review and approval. I don't have that list in front of me, but I'm happy to look it up during public comment so that I can respond to it after we close the public hearing. Specific to your question, you're correct. A yes vote would mean that we could apply this citywide, and that should somebody require an elevator to exceed the 8 feet, it would require a use permit approval by your commission with specific findings and justification to allow such thing. Your commission would then have the authority to reject it if you didn't feel like the design was reasonable. Now, a no vote would essentially mean that we are not providing access to rooftops that have upper story or rooftop decks on approved projects. So it would essentially require, in this instance, a redesign of the project itself. This project specifically.
Okay, so a yes vote ensures more oversight from this commission and a public hearing.
It would provide oversight. I wouldn't say more because there wouldn't be an opportunity for there to be any oversight. The answer would be no. if they wanted to exceed the 8 feet. Without that use permit approval, the answer would just be no, which was what staff's response had to be, because based on my read of the code, that use permit process doesn't exist. So if you afford the use permit process, they can move forward and make that application, which is what the next item is. If we don't move forward and somebody in the future came forward and said, I'd like to have a rooftop deck and I want to access it and my elevator is going to be 13 feet above that roof floor, can I do that? The answer would be no.
Okay, so, but then at the beginning, they would know that that's the condition, and we're in a position here where we approved a project without that clarification. Is that correct?
Did we approve that project without the clarification? No. I think that that is a question to ask of the applicant and how their design evolved pursuant to accessibility requirements, both at the ground level and throughout the building. So that is a question that would be best answered by the applicant.
Okay, and then I have a question for our Attorney Thompson. If we make a decision that results in this building not having rooftop access for, ADA compliance, does that put us at risk of litigation? Like, how does that?
So when this is just the beginning of a longer approval process, and so the building plans would have to be approved by the building official, and I don't think that they would be approved without that ADA access. Does that answer your question? So there is probably no scenario where there would be a rooftop deck without the ADA access.
Okay.
I actually would like to ask another question when you're.
I will cede the floor to you, Vice Chair Swift.
And I do believe the building official's online.
Yes,
If that-
Mr. Sadowski, he is our building official, contracted through CSG Consultants. He is available to answer any questions that you have regarding that matter. I did just want to make one clarification. The project was approved in 2022. It was approved with the rooftop deck. So if your commission were to vote to not allow for the use permit process, that interpretation and determination can be appealed to the city council, where they ultimately make the final vote on that. And then at that point in time, depending on their determination, is when either the applicant will need to redesign or whether or not they're able to move forward. And Ms. Thompson is correct. The building official would not approve plans that did not meet ADA requirements.
Okay. Go ahead. Did you have more?
Yeah, you use the phrase, they wouldn't be able to have a rooftop deck because they wouldn't have ADA access.
Sorry, not that they wouldn't be able to have their rooftop deck. Again, it was already approved, but the redesign would have to meet all of our requirements. So if we can only have that elevator shaft 8 feet above that 40 feet, then the top of that elevator shaft would have to be held at 48 feet. And they'd have to find space someplace else, which would be difficult to do. And again, I think that is a great question for the applicant based on the operations and the needs and functions of peak Wi-Fi and how they're looking to expand their business.
And it's driven mostly by the choice of floor heights for the industrial level, which are higher than floor heights for a typical commercial mixed use of
Correct.
20 feet for high bay space versus 15 feet for commercial space.
Correct.
Are there any other questions of staff from any of the other commissioners? Seeing none, and I think this will be a back and forth conversation as we learn more. Moving on, we have done that. Now I get to open the public hearing. So, I have a whole stack of people eager to speak. Yes.
Do you want to speak to the building official?
Oh.
Did you have any questions for him? Because I can put him through.
I'm trying to remember the question I asked before. I feel like we got
You were
the ADA.
sorry.
Yeah. So
You were asking whether or not he would approve, or the building official would approve plans if it didn't provide ADA access throughout the building. I believe the answer is no, but happy to bring him on, introduce him, and allow him to speak to that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful if he's there. That'd be great. Do I have to reopen public comment? Or well, no, we're not, sorry. Did I tap?
No.
Okay, public comment is not open yet. I need my gavel. Yes, let's hear from, what's the gentleman's name?
Mr. Sadowski.
Mr. Sadowski.
You might say that's his dad, but.
Good evening, everybody. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Well, thank you, Director Martin and commissioners. So to speak to some of the items that have been brought forth, as Director Martin mentioned, the access to any elements within the building need to be on an accessible route, for persons with disabilities. So for a new structure such as this, they would need to provide equivalent access via elevator or some means by which to get people up to this rooftop level. So if the direction is that they cannot have this elevator at that point, that would not provide access to the roof level, and then, as she mentioned, would need to redesign to either reduce the story, which I'm sure the applicant team would not prefer, to reduce the overall project and redesign. So if there are alternatives in terms of considerations that the commission has, I'd be happy to review those.
Any questions for Mr. Sadowski? Thank you very much. So let us now move into the public hearing for item 3. And the first speaker, I did not put these in order of how I received them, so I apologize. So we'll just start where I've got it. First speaker I have is Debbie Peterson.
Chairman Mann and members of the Planning Commission, thank you for your service. These are hard decisions, I know. I did want to make sure that we clarified that we're not saying that people here that if they don't have 13 feet, they can't have an elevator for handicap access. What we're saying is they can't build higher than a certain height. So floors could be lowered and it would still be possible to go up that 13 feet. I wanted to read to you from the local coastal program that was sent to me by the Community Development Director. In establishing the Coastal Act of '76, the California legislature declared the permanent protection of the state's natural and scenic resources is a paramount concern to present and future residents of the state and nation. The statement expresses that preservation of the state's unique coastal resources is essential to the long-term health, well-being, and prosperity of California and the nation as a whole. Visual values of the coastal zone are also referred to in another section of the Coastal Act, which states the scenic and visual qualities of coastal areas shall be considered and protected as a resource of public importance. Permitted development shall be sited and designed to protect views to and along the ocean and scenic coastal areas to be visually compatible with the character of surrounding areas, and where feasible to restore and enhance the visual quality in visually degraded areas. The coastal zone is divided into 9 geographic areas based on homogeneity of visual character or land use or the presence of a shared visual resource. Area 7, which is where this project is located south of Rockaway, west of South 4th Street. It's visible from Highway 1 and sensitive to developments that detract from the highway's value as a scenic coastal access route. Visual conflict in this area lies primarily in the obstruction of views of the dunes from inland areas by industrial developments. The policy in our local coastal program is that future industrial developments shall be required to meet precise landscaping and design requirements. Future developments shall not be permitted to further obstruct views of the dunes from adjacent inland areas. And then the Citizen Vision document states that building heights should be limited to 3 stories, not to exceed 40 feet, including rooftop utilities, except at the intersection of 4th and Grand and between 16th and Oak Park on Grand. So if the council or the board decides that we should set this precedent that anybody who wants a roof deck can have an additional 13 feet over the 40 feet, then it really it creates a precedent. I realize it would take Planning Commission approval, but it's going to be hard not to give it. And so what I would suggest is that people work within the guidelines.
Thank you very much. I will invite Sylvia, do you pronounce it Boyer? Okay, with the HR, I wasn't quite sure. Yes, great.
It's even worse.
Thank you very much.
Never pronounce my names. Yes, Sylvia Boyer. I have a few things. One is, I always try to consider my neighbors. There's a lot of people that are going to lose their views, and this isn't built yet. And the people that are going to lose their views have already owned their homes. They already have equity in their homes. And when I used to work in San Ynez a lot, and I know before big buildings went up, they would actually put a skyline up, like a tape, to show what the skyline's going to look like once that building is there. I don't know if that's something that the community asked them to do before they were allowed to do these big buildings, but I think it's important to consider the fact that the citizens that live here, maybe they don't want their views taken. The other thing is, sometimes you mess up and you just have to go back and do it again. And I've had to do that. And then, is there going to be an antenna? So I don't know about the safety of those antennas. I think I've read a lot about them not being very healthy for us. So just those things to consider. Thanks.
Did I skip over the applicant?
Sorry, that's probably based on how I was referencing
Okay,
it. There
the
isn't an
applicant is you,
applicant. The
actually.
applicant is
Okay.
the city staff.
Okay.
But I was referencing the applicant because that was what triggered the policy interpretation request.
Okay, so depending on the
that's for
vote on
item
this, then we may hear from the applicant, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, sorry, just wanted to double check it. And nobody stopped me, so. Moving on, I have Emily Elver, if you'd like to come speak.
Apologies on my poor penmanship. My name is Emily Ewer.
Okay.
I am Senior Planner at Oasis Associates. I'm the applicant's representative for your next hearing item, but wanted to provide a statement now since your considerations on this item directly affect that one. Coming from the perspective of a user of the development code, the seemingly arbitrary distinction between architectural features and elevator shaft currently reduces your authority and ability to consider and balance the intent of the code with the benefits of orderly design. There is no clear benefit in development policies or public safety and welfare to identify discretionary review for one element and not the other. Applying the modification and use permit review process to all architectural features, including elevator shafts and stairways, provides the appropriate review and approval mechanism and flexibility to consider a variety of building designs and operations. This interpretation is a critical step in order for the next item on your agenda. We are prepared with a presentation for that item, so I won't go into all of the details at this point, but that item is to allow a request for a height exception for a building component that makes up less than 1% of the overall building footprint. This request is not for a 5-story building or a skyscraper development. It will simply allow that ADA and universal access to an approved rooftop deck on a 3-story structure. For the matter at hand, your clarifying interpretation on the consistency to apply your discretionary review is appropriate and good governance. I look forward to presenting more information on the specific request in item number 4 shortly, but did want to at least acknowledge the question as to why this request is being made now rather in 2022 with the original development. As you may suspect, there are a multitude of development considerations and design considerations as part of any proposed project. The design team takes every effort to identify critical details as part of the conceptual plans. However, the design refinement process between concept and construction level design details seems to, without fail, identify some elements that was not fully considered or addressed during the conceptual designs. For this project, it was the physical height requirements for an elevator to access the rooftop. So we did have a height exception request of 9 feet. We discovered that we need 13 feet to physically make an elevator work. If we had known that in 2022, we certainly would have requested it. So I thank you for your consideration and your discretionary review.
Thank you, Ms. Ewer. Moving on, I have, if you have submitted a slip, I would be happy to have you speak again. But please fill out another slip and give it to Clerk Quintana. Are there enough slips over there?
No, I didn't fill one out yet.
Okay.
Normally, I would just raise my hand.
Yeah, well, sorry, that sounds very flippant. In the interest of order, since we're asking everyone to fill out a slip for their 3 minutes. The next person that I have, so I've taken care of, so I have 2 for Sylvia on item 3. Okay, great. I have I'm not sure who this, B, and then, Brenda. Oh, yes, okay. What? We've got time. If we get to 7:30 and we're still here, we'll take a potty break.
I do not believe you need a slip to speak. I don't think you do. Check it. Check a lot of stuff, all of you. I am really, really surprised and disappointed y'all didn't have questions. Are you actually looking at the documents? This is kind of like when you just voted on the consent agenda and there was a legit question about the CIP. Oh, go look it up on the website. Did you quickly look it up on the website and get the answers? No. If I was to ask any of you, I bet you could not answer the question right now, yet you voted on it. Hey, this is what's going on in Grover Beach. We have wastewater loans, we have sewer loans we forgot to pay. It's because our boards are not paying attention to what's going on. No offense to any of you, but this is my money. It's all of our money. And guys,
Ms.
peak
Auer,
Wi-Fi.
If I may ask you to speak to item 3.
Absolutely. What is the actual height? I can't see it in the book. It's too small for me to see. What's the total height of this building? And guys, please don't. Peak Wi-Fi, I know nothing about you, other than you're making a lot of money off Grover Beach. Way to go. What's the actual height? Is it an extra 13 feet that you're approving, Megan? And by the way, all this went down in COVID. All of these 5-story buildings or 4-story buildings or 55 high got changed during COVID while people were trying to survive. Hey, this is a good time. People aren't going to meetings. They don't know what's going on. I know you weren't all on the council, but we know that's what happened. We used to have stakes in the sky so you could see that your view was going to be blocked. Those got taken away. Now we don't know. And I've sold over 500 homes in the area. I've sold a lot of homes to people with single-story ocean views. They're going to lose them. They paid premium dollar for that. I guarantee if any one of the 5 of you had an ocean view that was going to be blocked by this building, you'd be as passionate as I am. Hey, we were on the corner today. Did you see us? We're strong. There's a lot of numbers. Don't make us get back out. Do the right thing, please. Do the right thing. Why do we have a roof deck for a caretaker's unit on an industrial building? Why are we building that high in the Coastal Commission? Where'd they go? Let's see if I covered everything. Yep. Answer how high this building is going to be, please. Because from what I understand, I can't even read it. I just went and looked. The printing's so small, I can't tell. Do you know? Each one of you should know how tall this building is going to be without asking. Because it's a topic, right? Makes sense, doesn't it? I'm tired of being treated like I'm stupid. The whole town is. Let's get it together, okay? Do the right thing, please. So anyway, on that note, this is a building, an industrial building with a caretaker's unit on the top with a roof deck. And it needs an elevator.
Thank you very much, Ms. Auer. And moving on to Mr. Myrick, if you would like to come forward and speak on item 3.
Excuse my ignorance. What are they getting on the roof for again? Is this for the residents to get on the roof?
Caretaker unit.
I know, but what do you need an elevator for? I've worked on from Santa Barbara to Monterey, hotels in San Luis Obispo, 4 or 5 stories. We take the elevator to the top story, go up our own ladders, or they have one there to get up on the roof with the latch. Big metal opens up, and we go. It's just like a crawl hole, but it's metal because I make the top of them. My whole life I've been doing. I've never got to use an elevator all the way to the roof. This is the first I've ever heard of getting on the roof with an elevator on an industrial. You take the stairs up. That's what you do with your tools. I use a crane at $800 an hour, 2-hour minimum, to get the air conditioning units and all that up there. That we use a crane to get heavy stuff up there. Our tools, we just hack up, the elevator, then we use a ladder. Where are they going to park? I mean, what is this going to have? The antennas of radiation, it goes like, is this the Wi-Fi place? Hello?
It's your 3 minutes. I don't want to take it.
Is this that Wi-Fi building they're talking about? Or what's the antenna for?
We will answer that.
You will after I get done talking?
I'm recording your questions.
Okay, thank you. You guys are all right. I like you guys. Hey, David. But there are different levels right here. I'm not understanding what you're doing. There's 2 little peaks there where the caretaker, then the other one looks like a chimney, right? All they have to do is bring pitch the roof down a little bit there. Or, like she said, it was in planning in 2022. Apparently, Grover Beach, whoever's looking at the plans really messed up. Because if I was her, I'd be mad that I did this and wasn't told anything until now. That's what I'm gathering a little bit. When I built houses here, I had the same thing. You get people in there, they quit or something, they have your plans for a year, you think everything's fine, then the cost starts changing because they're changing it as they go. This should have been caught in planning, so whoever checks the plans out, Megan or whoever, messed up. It's a mistake. And if I was doing the building, I'd be upset about that mistake. But I wouldn't want it blocking my view either. I'd go down another story. But anyways, we messed up, Grover Beach did, approving it like this. And now, when you get some of these smart people over here, and me, well, I'm not as smart as them, but that caught this, and it looks like a thorn, like a wart on a hand sticking up there. And I don't know what he needs an elevator for. It shocks me. You need an elevator to get up there. But that's about it. And let's all pay attention to this meeting, okay?
Thank you very much. Perfect timing. Is there anyone else in the room who wants to speak on item 3? Do I have one for you, Jeff? If you would, just for me, when you're done. Thank you.
I'll give you my name. Jeff Boyer, resident Grover Beach. So one thing I really want to bring up, because I know we're about to roll into the whole presentation from the non-residents here who are ultimately looking to profit from this development. They're going to bring up their points, and their goal is to make as much money on their building projects as they can. So I don't blame them for, wanting to maximize their space. Sure, have a rooftop deck, why not? It's going to make the thing worth more money, right? But if you go on social media, you look at what the people that actually live in Grover Beach are saying about the height of these buildings, you'll see something totally different than what you're going to hear from the people that are looking to make their money and ultimately go home. People that live here in Grover Beach don't want the additional height. We don't want to see things sticking up from buildings that are 13 feet above an already too tall building. I think that, if you have to redesign it without a rooftop deck, fine, good. In my opinion, that doesn't bother me, because I don't want your height there. So, I encourage everybody to go to social media for Grover Beach community, all the different, maybe next door, anything. Just see what people are saying about these buildings. They're not happy about it, and this just keeps happening. And honestly, everyone's feeling very sold out. I think most people in Grover Beach are just feeling like this is all just kind of steamrolling us, and we're feeling sold out. So take that into account whenever you make your decision tonight. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One more, and I'll give you Speak one more time.
I believe we're allocating 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone else? I don't believe that's how this is going to work.
Yeah, I don't recommend that. If you give one speaker more than one opportunity, you'll have to give every speaker more than one opportunity.
I will be holding to the 3 minute per person rule in this meeting.
Just one person is asking. That's not too much.
It is within my purview to make that decision as chair, I believe. Correct? Thank you. I will also ask if there is anyone on the line who wanted to speak to item 3.
No, there's not.
Okay. I will now close public comment on item 3. And I will, so now that was, where are we now? You were the applicant, right? So at this point, I'm told I open the floor to the applicant, AKA agent, which is you, on this motion, which is regarding interpretation of the code.
There were several questions that were asked during public comment. I'm happy to answer those if your commission and you, Chair, see fit.
Shall we hear from, yes, that would be wonderful, and I'm sure the room would appreciate your clarifications.
Sure. So how tall is the building? It is 40 feet. How tall will the elevator tower be if your commission chooses to allow for consideration of the use permit approval? 53 feet. The tower itself, a 10 by 10 space, would be 53 feet in height. The remainder of the building would be 40 feet in height. I think another question that was asked, something was mentioned about view sheds and the whether or not the project itself is compliant with the local coastal program. Not here to speak on whether the project itself is consistent with the LCP, the adopted LCP, or not. But what I can say is that the 40-foot height limit was a part of the development code amendments in 2022. And that was forwarded to the Coastal Commission following local approval as a local coastal program amendment, and that the Coastal Commission found our LCP amendment consistent with our adopted local coastal program. So the Coastal Commission themselves found our height increases citywide, as well as our different zonings that we identified consistent with the LCP, so for all property within the coastal zone. So I did want to provide that clarification. The other item that I wanted to touch on was regarding the elevator tower. So Mr. Sadowski wanted to make sure that your commission understood there's a distinction between the required fire department or maintenance access and providing disabled access. Not everybody is capable of walking upstairs. The ladder's for fire and maintenance, elevator is for disabled access. Because there's a roof level feature for use by residents, the elevators needed to serve as a means of access. So he wanted to make sure that that distinction was made following a public comment earlier. And unless there's anything else I missed, happy to answer anything else.
So we covered that the elevator is for the residents. If there were no residents, it would not.
So this is a business. This is an
Yeah.
industrial building, and it will house many more employees for Peak Wi-Fi to be able to expand their operations. So there are employees there, and there is also an opportunity for a caretaker's unit. It could be somebody that's employed at the business themselves. It could be a janitor. There's also a live-work space, which means that an employee will have the opportunity to live here at this location. So there's 2 units, and then the rest of the users of this building will be employees and visitors to that business.
And so the rooftop then is available to all of the employees
And their visitors.
And the visitors.
Correct.
For social gatherings, for all kinds of things, whatever they want to do up there.
Sure.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Shall I? Let me move on to the. Okay, so the applicant and staff are the same. So, yes, let us go on to questions from commissioners. And I'm sorry I jumped the gun there. I should have gone in my order.
To go back to the last item,
If I may.
where we're answering questions from the floor, there's a great deal of concern about blocking views, right? And Grover's gone through a big evolution in our requirements for prevention of blocking of views. In the old days, we did used to put story poles up where we would show the height and the areas of proposed buildings, and residents and everyone could see what the impact would be to their views. And that was under the old code where there were provisions for the Planning Commission to deny developments because of a substantial blocking of views. And those requirements went away. And so the story pole requirement went away. But I understand there are some still requirements, some cautions, perhaps, desired features of developments. And if, Ms. Martin, you could perhaps review those briefly for us.
I'll need you to clarify your question a little bit. So my understanding, though, is that those poles, the story poles, ultimately also went away simply because technology got better. We can now provide renderings and elevations, a part of an application that shows your commission exactly how a project will look better than a story pole might be able to.
All right.
But as far as what we have in place now for visual impacts, we are subject to the California Environmental Quality Act, and we're required for every single application that is considered a project under CEQA to look at whether or not there would be an impact to a view shed. And I want to be very specific to your commission as well as to those that are in the audience. When CEQA looks at measurable significance of an impact on a view shed, it is talking about a public view shed, not a private view shed. We are not, pursuant to state law, we don't protect private views, period. So I know even for those that have lived here for 20, 30 years that they now can't see the dunes or see that horizon line, but we don't protect from private view sheds because it's too subjective. Whereas public view sheds, for example, Pismo Preserve, or if Ramona Park was higher up, or Dino Caves Park, for example, so a park, something that has a public, I don't want to say benefit, but we don't protect private, correct. We don't protect private views, we only protect public views. And it's not enough to even say, well, my street is public right-of-way, so that's a public view. That street needs to be designated as such by either the community or a larger agency. For example, Highway 1 can be designated in some areas as scenic. It's not in this area. Same with Highway 101. It may be in some areas, but it's not. So we don't have any public view sheds where there would be a significant impact that would alter us from being able to move forward with something like this.
All right, very good. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, I'm sorry, my eyes went back up the sheet, and that's why I'm in a confused place. We are now in the commissioners discussing the project amongst ourselves phase with whatever questions we need to direct to staff. So
You're going to
it's
do
a
it in
lot.
alphabetical order?
We're going to do it. Well, we got Commissioner Halverson. Thanks, everybody, for being patient with me.
Okay, so to me, it's unfortunate that this decision that we're going to make in item 3 has actually gotten devolved down to talking about item 4. Item 3 is really not about this Wave Wi-Fi project. This is in general talking about what the city will do in the case of a request for an exception about a stairway or an elevator equipment room. And so we've gotten cobbled up with this project and talked way too much about the project. It's not really having anything to do with that. It's having to do with clarifying a piece of code that got written that may or may not have made a mistake in not including elevators in the ability to grant exceptions. And that's really what we're talking about for this item. And so we're not granting any exceptions here. All we're doing is giving the Planning Commission the ability to review requests for exceptions. That's all we're doing. This one to me is a slam dunk, and I'll say no more.
Okay, I will move on to Commissioner Hoffman.
I agree with Commissioner Halverson, and I think allowing us to use the use permit process for elevators makes sense with the other elements of the code that it already talks about with architectural elements, and allowing us to view things in a case-by-case basis, I think is the right thing to do.
Commissioner Hoffman. No, you're Hoffman. Holden. See, I gotta have my list.
And I agree with the other two commissioners.
Vice Chair Swift?
I don't necessarily agree with the other three commissioners. And I think, how does she pronounce her name? Emily Ewer? Ewer. She used the words arbitrary distinction between architectural features and elevators. And I actually don't think it's arbitrary. You know, if I think about the intent of architectural features, those are for public benefit, right? We would undulate a building, we would undulate a facade, we would add cupolas or clock towers, and those are public features to add beauty to a project, to add something that the neighborhood would see and enjoy. An elevator is a known functional piece of equipment that's driven by the underlying design of the building. It is not something for the benefit of the community. And so I think it is distinct in that regard. Right? It's not an architectural feature, it's not pretty, it's just there as a functional piece of the building. And the building should accommodate that within the limitations of the building envelope. And so I don't think an elevator should be treated the same. Certainly the mechanicals for the elevator above its current height in the code should be treated the same as an architectural feature. It's unique, and it's not an architectural feature. It is a functional feature of the building.
Wait, sorry, did you say the mechanical element should be treated the same as architectural features,
No,
or should not be?
It is a functional part of the building.
Can we go back to those two definitions?
Unoccupied architectural feature.
Thanks.
Did you have anything else, Vice Chair Swift? Any other commissioners' questions?
Yeah, and maybe the only piece I would add to that is if there's something missing in the code that makes this unclear to development applicants, that especially within residential zones versus industrial zones, that's probably something that should be looked at more closely. You know, the underlying intent for that zone. And I think the reason it's complicated on this project, while we're not discussing the project, we're discussing our role in this piece, is that we have a roof deck which creates the problem in an industrial zone. So that's my position. I'm a soft no, or I think I'm a hard no.
Okay. So in my mind, if there is a architectural feature that happens to have an elevator inside of it,
that's occupied.
And how are we treating the mechanical? If you're saying it's not an architectural feature and therefore it should be treated differently.
It should be treated as mechanicals.
So this is why staff believed that there was an unintended gap in the code, because previously under the 2019 code, architectural features included mechanical equipment. But again, the key word there being unoccupied. But when we went through with the changes in 2022, we did not include the same procedures for elevators as we do for architectural features. I don't know why. And again, that is why we're here this evening, is for your commission to provide direction to staff as to how we administer this code section.
I think it's unique.
Yeah, and I guess we're like, from my point of view, we're talking about something that is exceeding the height and how we're going to deal with, with the community figuring out, is this exception acceptable or not? And I would prefer to include, because the elevator is an accessibility issue, it is important to me that if, I would lean towards treating it with the use permit process at this point. So.
And yet it provides no public benefit. The exception provides no public benefit.
It provides a public benefit to those who are disabled and wouldn't otherwise have access to that
I'm
roof.
thinking of all the employees.
So it is.
They climb high wires.
You know,
Absolutely.
the employees, and I mean, it's to be able to, and again, we're talking about the specific project, but, you know, I feel like we shouldn't, I see treating it as, I would like to have our commission be able to treat things more uniformly.
I'd also just like to note that with the use permit consideration, if your commission were to move forward with it, there are specific legal findings that your commission would have to make. And so again, on a case-by-case basis, you would have the opportunity to look at each of these different projects that came forward requesting that additional height, if they did, or needed to, and they would need to justify, okay, well, is this consistent with the general plan? Does this meet development code? Your commission can also, with the direction that you give staff this evening, is to ask staff to come up with additional findings that would be required for elevator towers in order for us to bring forward an application for a use permit. So we would just add that to the height exceptions as additional findings that would need to be made in order for your commission to approve a request to exceed that height of 8 feet.
Are those things that would need to be in this first resolution for item 3, or that's something that we'd talk about after?
It would be something that we could return to your commission with at the next next agendized planning commission for the development code updates that we anticipate for either June or July.
Okay. Anything else from my fellow commissioners? What page are we on?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'll add is that if there's going to be revisions to the code to better treat rooftop deck access, because that's really what we're talking about, right? This is a rooftop deck access. This is a luxury feature on a building, whether it's industrial or residential mixed use, that has rooftop access with an elevator in a zone with a height limit that's now getting some additional feet. I think we ought to spend some time really working the language in that code, if there's going to be changes made to it to allow it, that we catch the cases for the different zones, so that we don't just suddenly have roof decks popping up in every single zone because they've got the space to do it on the roof now.
Anything else?
I mean, they do have the space to do it. They just don't have enough space for the elevator for the ADA compliance. And it's like, it's a 10 by 10 space.
They don't have enough height because they chose the design features to exceed the height. Right? You could choose to live within the envelope, or you can choose all the features that you want and then ask for an exception. That's the case. I mean, it's a height of 48 feet that's allowable in the code, right?
Yes.
48 feet for mechanicals, for architectural features. And if you can't live within the 48 feet, it means you've made some design choices that now you're asking for some more space because you've got features that won't let you do that. And they're often, features that don't benefit the public. If it was a feature that benefited the public, I would say, hey, but it benefits the private occupants of that building. So,
All right,
sorry.
well, there's literally, is a commercial or industrial, I'm not sure how you classify this one, building. It's not a public space, it's not a museum, it's to benefit a commercial business. All the features in the building, and there's many of them, not just elevators, but glass and lighting and all these things. None of them benefit the public per se, but they are part of a commercial development. And all we're doing, again, I reiterate, all we're doing in this motion is to clarify probably what was an oversight in the production of the update to the code. That's all we're doing. We're not granting any particular project, any particular waiver. We're opening up the door, is the most I could say, to developers perhaps trying to exploit that ability.
And I think it's a bigger revision than just allowing what's specifically talked about here. I think it's a better clarification of the intent of that language for each zone.
You think what is a better?
I think you want to go back and really rewrite that piece for each zone to capture
agree.
the public interest and intent, not just we're going to use a use permit now to allow elevators to go higher.
As part of the code update, I agree that the staff should look into that and be much more definite and clear about what we want and what we don't want. And a lot of it has to do with what the city council wants and doesn't want.
True.
And staff's going to have to work with council to figure out intent and what limitations they want to build in to that with regard to these small increments of height.
So do we approve this here for this very specific change for a use permit on the code and wait for the city council to revise the code? Or do we decline this change now and push it to the city council in collaboration with the planning commission to properly revise this section of the code to capture the right use cases?
And valid argument, but we have a project that I didn't want to talk about in this section, but there is a project in the wings that, state government has pushed all the municipalities and the counties to not stand in the way of development, and one of the standings in the way of is waiting for commission meetings to roll up and to get approvals for things, and so you're going to basically deny this person the right to move forward on his project for what's going to end up being months by the time we get new language written and get it approved. What are we talking, a year?
Probably about that.
Yeah, okay.
How many housing units does this project add to our?
Two. Well, two is two.
Do we take credit for those two?
We would be able to take credit for those two. In fact, it would likely provide more affordable housing for employees that are going to be.
There you go.
That are going to be. Thank
There you
you. That are going to be occupying the space.
Yeah.
So,
We will be in order.
so live work units, you are required to be an employee of the space to live there, and a caretaker's unit must manage the business that is on the site. So they will most likely be employees.
So 2 units.
2 units.
Do I have a motion? Well, first of all, is there anyone who would like to review the language in the resolution that we may be proposing? Do we have a copy of that we can put up?
Wouldn't we just be adding the same agricultural features sentence to the elevator shaft?
Well, I don't think we're revising the code. We don't have the power to revise the code here. All we're doing is giving staff direction.
Correct. Staff direction to apply this interpretation citywide, and we will then apply it citywide under your interpretation, but bring back a code amendment as part of the development code changes that we brought forth in 2024 that would outline the actual code change. And this would apply effective immediately, but the actual code change would reflect that at a later date.
And it's to approve elevator shafts to exceed the 8 feet of up to, how much?
To your commission's discretion, but if you would like to apply that at a later date, you can, but it would essentially say elevator shaft or stairways that exceed the height limit and are greater than 8 feet require use permit approval. So that first highlighted line under D1, architectural features, would be copy-pasted to elevator shaft or stairway, but instead of architectural features, it'll say elevator shaft or stairway.
63 feet.
Are we ready for a motion
You good there?
on item 3?
I know. I mean, ready for a motion.
May I have a motion on item 3?
Go ahead.
I will move that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution to provide policy clarification to address the procedural gap between architectural features and elevator shafts under the next development code update.
And I second it.
Clerk Crotana, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes.
Commissioner Halverson?
Yes.
Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Vice Chair Swift,
No.
and Chairman.
Yes. The motion does pass. Thank you, everyone, for this very good discussion. And I would like to suggest a short break before we move on, because with this item passing, we will move ahead with item 4, which is the public hearing for the use permit. Is that correct? All right.
That is correct.
So, 10 minutes? Give people a chance for a bio break and some air. So we will reconvene at 7:50. It's time to start the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to get things started on item 4 tonight. Thank you, everyone. A little humor moment there. So we will resume the Planning Commission meeting with item 4, which is Development Application DA-25-0011. The applicant is Peak Wi-Fi, and we will hear from Community Development Director Megan Martin.
Great, thank you. Tonight we'll be reviewing an application to consider an increased height for an elevator tower associated with an approved development project located at 305 Long Branch Avenue. The approved project consists of a 4-story mixed-use project that includes 1 live-work unit, 1 caretaker's unit, and a 17,000 square foot office and industrial space. The proposed changes to the project are limited to an increase in height for the elevator tower, which is intended to provide access to the approved rooftop deck. The project site's located east of Highway 1, outside of the coastal appealable zone. It's along the intersection of Long Branch Avenue and South 3rd Street. The project site is located in the coastal industrial zone. It's surrounded by industrial uses to the north, south, east, as well as residential to the northeast of the site and east. On April 6th, 2022, the Planning Commission approved the project, which was found in compliance with all development standards at the time of approval. The project was approved before the 2022 Development Code update, which allowed for a use permit process for specific architectural features to exceed the maximum building height, including the elevator towers. Under the 2022 Development Code update, elevator towers then became limited to a maximum height of 8 feet above the max building height, as was discussed in the previous item. The applicant has applied for this use permit to request the maximum height of the elevator tower to exceed the 8 feet to a maximum of 13, consistent with the allowances for architectural features. On August 12th, 2024, the applicant submitted a building permit for the project. During staff's review, it was noted that the proposed elevator shaft providing rooftop access exceeded the maximum allowed height by 5 feet. To address this, the applicant applied for the use permit to request an additional height of 5 feet. The use permit request supports the broader goals of the Development Code by providing discretionary review mechanism for limited height exceptions driven by operational needs and accessibility standards and requirements. All required findings for the use permit request have been incorporated into your resolution. It's made a part of your Planning Commission packet. Since the project does not consist of any site design changes or intensification of use of the property, the project remains consistent with all relevant policies under the LCP, or Local Coastal Program, the general plan, and the industrial design guidelines. The change in maximum height of the elevator tower does not conflict with any existing objective design standard, and the project remains consistent with the relevant standards under the Development Code with your Commission's interpretation provided under Item 3. Tonight's recommendation is to find the project consistent with the Local Coastal Program, General Plan, and Development Code, and approve the use permit subject to findings and conditions that are listed in the resolution. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
And I will go through the roll, starting with Chair Halverson.
Chair, I'm the chair.
Sorry, Chair.
All right.
Commissioner, yeah.
Okay.
You were. Weren't you the chair at the time of this?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Former chair, current Commissioner Halverson.
Thank you. All right, questions for staff. So the original thing that we did approve in 2022, the building height was conforming with the existing requirement at that time, right, which was 35 feet?
Correct, but there was a condition of approval that would allow it to go to 40 if the Development Code was amended.
Exactly. And we also at that time approved essentially a 1-foot variance on the height of the elevator tower.
Correct, to 9 feet.
Because that was requested to.
Correct.
And so, and the original elevator included the access to the roof deck, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So.
And again, in concept, because it was the planning documents.
Understand.
Correct.
I'm just trying to go through the facts, because that's the timeline here is kind of important, I guess, as far as authorizing an exception. So we gave them an extra 5 feet in the new development code, and so they took that 5 feet and increased the building height to 40 feet, which was allowed. But now we need an extra 4 feet, 5 feet to accommodate the elevator. And from what I have gained in the earlier discussion, the reason for that was because the original design didn't allow enough space for an elevator to serve the top floor, the top deck. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so that's why we're here tonight. So I guess, let's see, do I have any other questions? I don't think so, maybe of the applicant. I will pass.
All right, Commissioner Hoffman.
I also do not have questions for Ms. Martin.
Commissioner Holden.
I have no questions.
Vice Chair Swift.
I always have questions. Can you show me a plan view slice through the 40-foot elevation on the building?
Do you mean this elevation?
So is the roof deck at 40 feet?
The floor of the roof
The
deck?
floor of the roof deck is at 40 feet.
Hold on one second. I'm confirming that it's the floor of the roof deck at 40 versus the top of the railings, which are required to be up should you have access to rooftop. So just hold on one second. Do you have another question while we wait on that answer?
Yeah, I think it really goes to the 100 square feet of the stairway or elevator protrusions from the roof, that in this view you're showing here, if the roof deck is at 40 feet, everything that is above the 40-foot elevation would fall under that 8 feet plus a use permit, with the caveat that they are less than 100 square feet.
I think I understand your question, so my answer is correct. And I've received confirmation that the floor itself is 40 feet, and the railings were also approved over the 40 with the original approval.
So I guess what I'd like to know, because we're approving a use permit for the little things circled in red up there, is that all of the other structures above 40 feet are consistent with the
Previous approval, correct, and with the maximum allowed height of 48 feet.
and the 100 square feet. Isn't that what the code says?
Only if it's over that 8 feet.
Only if it's over the 8 feet. I thought that was anything that was over the building height limit.
Sorry, I misspoke. Yes, correct. For the elevator and/or the architectural features, which this
Or the
doesn't.
stairwells.
Correct.
And so are those protrusions above the 40-foot elevation 100 square feet?
Is Mr. Bell on the line? He's not on the line? Okay. Okay, I'll leave it to the applicant. I can't answer that question for you right now. But my understanding is that the project itself meets the code as is required, and that 100 square feet applies to that elevator shaft.
Yeah, it looks like from the picture you have there that everything above 40 feet actually violates the code, and so the use permit that we're dealing with in the little red box doesn't address the other two pieces that look like they violate the code.
Yeah, we'll ask the applicant to speak to it. Thank you, because Mr. Bell's not on the line.
Did you have any other questions, Vice Chair Swift? I think I will have more questions after we hear from the applicant, but none at this time. So
there's also a presentation from the applicant themselves.
I will, let me just make sure I'm on, good. We went through commissioners' questions for staff.
Just in case.
The next step is to open the public hearing for item 4, which will begin with the applicant, who has 10 minutes, because you are the applicant.
All right, let's see, I think there's a presentation that should hopefully be loading, and perfect. Good evening again. Emily Ewer with Oasis Associates, Senior Planner, here representing the owner of Peak Wi-Fi LLC. That includes Mr. Tom Costa, the owner and founder, Andres Ulate, which is the project architect from Pulse, my principal planner at Oasis, Carol Florence, as well as our contractor, Jake Saunders. There's also members of Peak Wi-Fi employees here as well and supporters. Wanted to thank you for your consideration and interpretation on the last action item. I'd also like to thank staff for their presentation and echo their recommendation of approval. This thanks also extends to their responsiveness and ongoing coordination as we worked through this development process. Since you've received staff's report and presentation, I'll not belabor the site context and the project history, but did want to take a moment to highlight a few points that are germane to the focus of the matter at hand. Just first, to address the question of the 100 square foot area for those features that are exceeding that height. The 2020 development code that we were originally approved on did not make that distinction. So it wasn't a part of that purview or even that consideration of how large are these things. It was architectural features, okay. So I'll go back to my regularly scheduled program here. As mentioned, we are requesting approval of development application 250011 per the draft resolution provided by staff, which updates the project height exception to allow that 13-foot height exception for the 96 square foot elevator tower located on the east corner of the building. A quick summary of the approved project. The building is a 3-story industrial mixed-use building with a rooftop deck. Peak Wi-Fi will occupy the ground floor, while the upper floor office space can be leased separately while Peak Wi-Fi continues to grow their business. The caretaker unit and live-work unit also provide on-site living opportunities. Since Peak is a high-tech industrial operation, the site is fully secured with fencing and gates. The gates will be open during typical office hours with after-hour access controlled via a coded entry system. All of these elements were approved in 2022 with the original use permit and remain intact as part of our project design. Based on the previous discussion, I just wanted to touch on the rooftop use. Like other spaces such as ground floor patios, upper floor decks, the rooftop deck is a functional gathering space for employees, residents, and visitors. It is simply an outdoor functional space for however it needs to be used. The following video provides a better narrative and a visual description of the project than any attempt I could make. So if you'll please turn your attention to a screen for a 2-minute video. Let's get this playing.
Wi-Fi has proudly served the Central Coast for over 10 years, providing reliable local internet service and support. We're excited to announce that we're building a new home for our company, one that will support our growth and help us better serve the Central Coast community with expanded services, all while maintaining the local feel our customers know and trust. As part of this expansion, we'll soon offer IT support and phone services in addition to internet. Our dedicated local team continues to grow, and we're committed to making this next chapter a success, serving our community now and into the future.
So at this point, I want to acknowledge the interpretation you've just made to allow discretionary review for height exceptions for elevator towers. I touched on the public comment prior as to why this request is being made now as opposed to when the original development was reviewed in 2022. So again, we had a height exception of 9 feet during our development refinement, discovered that that wasn't needed enough for the physical requirements of an elevator tower. I think our architect has learned something in the process. And, you know, cards on the table of when we got our original approval at 35 feet. Peak Wi-Fi was taking in an educated risk of, or a calculated risk of processing that in 2022 under that development code with the condition of approval to allow 40 feet, because this wasn't going to be developed at 35. Had that development code not been adopted, the project would have not proceeded forward. So it was a calculated risk in 2022. Perhaps we didn't present it as such then, but here we are today. So in short, the refinement of the project design and the changes of the development code are what have brought us here today. Had we known in 2022 that we needed 13 feet, we would have asked for it. Beyond the policy and code compliance considerations that staff has presented, there are site-specific considerations that we feel justify the request. Admittedly, the project does maximize the development envelope. This is needed to make the business operations and marketability of the lease spaces financially feasible. Peak Wi-Fi has taken intentional actions to remain within the city, and employs local residents, some of which are here tonight. This project is a major undertaking for a homegrown tech company, and the reality is that a smaller or shorter building does not financially work. The project was approved with the youth rooftop use in 2022, and any public or private access to the roof requires an elevator to comply with ADA laws. Additionally, the ground floor location of the elevator is specifically cited to ADA entry access requirements, which is why it's located in the corner of the building that it is. It's, again, one of those design details that came to light during the refinement of the project. And again, there are the physical overrun clearances required for elevator mechanical equipment. In order to pull something up, you have to have those mechanisms in place to do so. So with that, I want to thank you for your consideration and in advance your approval of the requested height exception and use permit. My team and I are available for any questions.
Thank you very much. We will continue with the public hearing. I do not have any slips for item 4. So if you would like to speak, please do make one. I assume they're still over there. Is there, so if I could see a show of hands of people who are interested in speaking on this item. I have one. No one over here? Okay. Please continue. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Debbie Peterson. I personally have no objection to providing a slip. What I object to is something that the American Civil Liberties Union of Northern California states, which is that you can't be prohibited from speaking if you refuse to sign a speaker slip, and even providing your name is voluntary. So I just want to make sure that in Grover Beach that we follow the Constitution. I would like to say that I certainly don't think we can make the findings that in any way that this project does not impact the public, because our local coastal plan states very clearly that view sheds do matter, and very clearly that view sheds from locations to the interior of this project will be impacted, or would be impacted, by projects of this size. And so what I'd like to do is plead with all of you, read the documents, read them for yourself, make your own interpretations. Please read the local coastal program, please read the visioning, put forth by the people of Grover Beach. And please consider that certainly when I looked at the supplemental items, we had, I believe, 16 letters opposed to approving this additional height. I didn't see any letters in favor. And I would like to say that I'm really glad that that Peak Wi-Fi is coming to Grover Beach, as from everything I've seen there, a great company. And so this isn't about Peak Wi-Fi. This is simply about following the rules. And it's simply about looking for the needs of the greater public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see anyone else with hands up in the room. Is there anyone on the line?
Yes, there is. Bill Ray.
Good evening. This is Bill Ray, Grover Beach, 60 years. Regarding the Wi-Fi building, I retired from doing a lot of antenna and high-level work. If you hire someone who has ADA requirements, you get a crane or a high lift to put them on the roof. This elevator thing is just to accommodate maybe a company picnic area. They'll probably put up a Costco, one of those white tents, and have delivery food. I mean, it's really beyond the 40-foot level. Now we're pushing it up. I would also look forward, you guys you'll probably be hearing a request for a radio tower, which I saw in the presentation. I don't know if that's been approved. It looks like it's about 60 or 80 feet. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else on the line?
We do have one more person, but they don't have their name on here, so I can put them through.
That would be great. We'd love to hear from you.
Hello, this is Kyle Bell, Senior Planner. I'm just on the line if you guys need me. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Bell. If there's no other public comment, I will close the public hearing. Now, do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? And I call you on you alphabetically.
Chairman, if you are going to ask the applicant questions, that should be a part of the public hearing.
Oh, sorry.
So it's okay. You can just reopen it.
I missed that. At least, here we go. Okay. I will reopen public comment in order for the commissioners to ask questions of the applicant.
Commissioner respondent.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
So I just have one curiosity question, really. This being a three-story building, most of the three-story buildings I am familiar with, when they talk about having elevators, they put in a hydraulic elevator, where most of the mechanical equipment then is down in a subfloor in a basement. But here, apparently, we've chosen to use a hoist elevator.
Yeah, we want a gooder. We want to throw them up so fast they hit the ceiling when they hit the top.
Okay. I don't understand the
We're very patient people.
So,
Hi,
you don't
Andres
have the patience
Vilate
for hydraulic elevators?
Polson Associates Architects. So, the hydraulic elevators, yes, they are operated from below with a hydraulic piston, but the overrun requirement is an OSHA requirement for a worker to be able to stand on top of the elevator car and not get crushed if the elevator car goes all the way to the roof. And that is where the overrun requirement comes from, and that's for any kind of elevator.
Okay, so then is this a hydraulic elevator that we're proposing here?
We haven't. It's a traction elevator. We haven't.
It's quieter and smoother.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
It's a much newer, more energy efficient unit, and we can go into that more with Title 24.
No, I was just curious about the whole idea. That was the only question I had.
Okay. Commissioner Hoffman?
I do have a question. So it sounds like to reduce the height of the building would be not financially feasible in terms of you wouldn't be able to have this building in Grover Beach. But I was just wondering, does that include the roof deck? Like if you got rid of the roof deck, it would no longer be financially feasible?
Yeah. In order for us to be a state-of-the-art technology company here in Grover Beach, which we'd like to start that
attraction for Grover Beach to have technology companies. We need to hire and retain the best talent, and we need to have amenities. So this is meant to be a really nice place to work. And we have attracted and hired some incredible top talent, any of the community. I started this in my garage here 10, 11 years ago, and we've grown. And our community, if you read the reviews of our company, they love our team. I want to be able to keep this team, and I want to have a state-of-the-art facility with amenities, and several of our staff will be living in the new building, and I would like it to be a collective where it's a nice place to work. So it's real important to us to have that roof deck.
Commissioner Holden?
I have no questions.
Vice Chair Swift?
So I actually want to follow up on my original question that had to do with all of the structures above 40 feet.
Yes, thank you. So with the original approval, and I'm sorry, I think I just misheard your question and then blanked, but with the original approval, all of those components that were above that 40 feet were counted already with the original approval. So the only thing that your commission is focused on this evening is the approval of that additional 100 square feet that goes above and beyond that 8 feet through use permit approval. So the other components were previously approved with that height exception through the modification to standards with that additional 1 foot.
But they were previously approved on the old code when
Correct.
it was a 35-foot building.
40-foot building. It was conditioned as a 40-foot building if the development code in 2022 was approved. So so we can also invite Ms. Ewer to speak to this as well, but that additional 9 feet was afforded with the original approval, which all of the components meet. But this elevator now needs to go 5 additional feet above that.
So the reason this is an important question is because it sounds like there are elements of the original code pre-22 that are being used and have been approved for the building. And that's all of that space above the 40-foot mark, which would have been normally at 35 feet, but now it's at 40 feet, and they were approved, and they exceed the 22 code, but they were approved prior to the 22 code. Now we're being asked to, let me finish, please. Now we're being asked to give an exception to the 22 code, but just that little piece of it, not the 100 square feet piece, just that little piece, to now allow the new 10-foot elevator piece to go even higher. And so I think the reason I want to ask this question is, what code are we operating under? And if you change which code you were originally approved under, do you now have to be approved under all of the new codes that you're asking to be judged by? In this case, it's the taller elevator shaft with a use permit, but what about all of the larger than 100 square feet building pieces that are above 40 feet?
So this is a fun one. So had we not had an approved development project from prior to the 2022 code amendment, I would say yes, the code changed and now they'd be subject to the 2022 code. However, they were approved under the previous code with the condition, the caveat, that would allow them to go up to 40 feet plus the additional some odd feet for the architectural features that were on the top of that rooftop deck. I believe it's in the realm of 9 feet, correct? It was a total of 9 feet. So 49 feet, essentially. Now, they're requesting a modification to their building for the elevator shaft only. The only change that they're making is that elevator shaft. And so with that, we are looking at just the elevator under the current 2022 code because the rest of it is still compliant with its previous entitlement.
Best of both worlds.
Yes. Best of both worlds. Reasonable.
Could have gotten better.
Did you have any other questions, Vice Chair Swift?
No.
Can I see a show of hands? Are all of you employees?
Or spouses of employees.
Or spouses of employees? It's great to have you here.
It's great support.
Yeah, and thank you for sitting through all of that procedural stuff. I hope it's been an education. We're doing our best. This is how the sausage gets made, you know. So It sounds like to me, it was at 9 and now it's at 13, so it's really only an extra 4 feet compared. The height of the rail that's around this rooftop deck is 42 inches, is that correct?
Correct.
So projecting, we're looking at something that instead of projecting, so what's that, 3.5 feet? It's, to my eye, it doesn't seem an incremental, change. I also, I happen to work for a biotech company, and I will say that having an amenity space, it is a challenge to keep people here and to pay them well enough to live here. And we have a number of employees that, I mean, we can, rents go up, 8, 9, 10% every year here. I don't know a single employer who can, even if they wanted to, give their employees an extra 8, 9%. So I wish that were the case. So part of this going to taller heights was to try and relieve some of that pressure on the rental market so that we can keep workers here. So all of this height discussion is happening in the context of a bigger thing, which is preventing displacement. This proposed thing adds 2 housing units, does not displace anybody. And when I look at the consequences of, over 4 feet, over a height of 4 feet, forcing someone to completely redo and pay for another set of plans, and it sounds like that just wouldn't even happen, like, where would you guys go? That being said, I would really like to keep you all here. And I want you employees to have a beautiful space to relax and enjoy each other's company, build that kind of trust that happens when you're able to throw those sorts of events and be together and enjoy. I did want to ask the location, is there a line of eucalyptus trees along there still? Between
believe so.
the site and the ocean?
No, I believe that, if my memory serves me, during the last storm, some of those trees were severely
they came
damaged
down,
and had
yeah.
to be removed for public safety issue.
Okay. But so when they were there, they would have been blocking the view?
Yes,
Right.
certainly. They were 50, 60 feet tall, but yes, they were severely damaged in was it a tornado or a hurricane?
Which was
a tornado.
Just last year.
Grover Beach tornado.
So the folks who currently, in the residential that currently have a view, did not have a view before. Is that correct? I think that's all I need to say about that. Let us move on. Any other questions from Commission for the applicant? So then, that is the end of the public hearing, right?
Yes.
So I gavel us out. Officially closed. See, now I'm not gavel. Isn't it so much fun? All right. We did that. I have closed the public hearing, and commissioners, would we like to discuss amongst ourselves?
Am I first?
Now is the time that we can actually talk to each other.
Okay, well, I think you gave a very impassioned summary of the issue here, and talking about retention and wanting to attract companies here, tech companies, even cooler. So I guess I don't have an issue with 4 feet higher, 100 square foot appurtenance on top of the building. That's it.
Do we have anybody else have opinions they want to share amongst ourselves?
I would definitely agree it is really hard to attract and keep young talent, as maybe a young talent myself. And yeah, I mean, I think of the parallel of universities nowadays. Like one of the reasons why they're so expensive is because students expect these amenities. And like you go to Cal Poly SLO, you go to the university I went to, they have so many more new amenities now than they used to. And while some people may not think it, is an important part of an education, people nowadays do feel that way. And so, yeah, I want to second what you said. Chairman, that, I think these things are being valued more and more. And also, I didn't know that about the view did not exist before now. So, and I also remember it was a very impactful thing. I remember you said, Commissioner Swift, last commission meeting, how you said that we are not in the business of protecting views. I remember you said that last time, something like that.
Well, you got to get the whole quote.
It was not in the business of protecting views, but also not in the business of enabling views. And so that should not be considered as something positive for a project if we're not considering taking someone's view as a negative for a project, right? I mean, you've just talked up how this is a great amenity, but to somebody it's not. And so I don't think that should be a consideration. I mean, it's great for them as a company, but I don't think it should be a consideration for us.
Well, I've lived in an apartment where there was no outdoor space, no balcony, nothing, and it was not a pleasant experience. And then moving to a place that did have an outdoor space really, made a great impact on how I felt about living there. So, I think it's not always about the view; it's about just being outside sometimes.
Do you have anything else?
I think Ann was.
Yeah, no.
Oh, sorry.
I don't have anything.
Did I jump ahead? I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're good.
No, we jumped ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We were.
That's okay.
Okay, yes, carry on.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you guys,
Okay.
you all have said, is that, it's nice to have a nice building. It's nice to have a building that people want to work in. I think these are all great features in any building. I would love to see them be more public, right? That these are benefits to the public. Peak Wi-Fi is a benefit to the public as far as the users. It's a benefit to the public of their employees, but it's not a benefit to the neighborhood. And blocking views, we hear from everybody, blocking views is not a benefit to the neighborhood. A rooftop deck for peak is not a benefit to the neighborhood. And so then you say, okay, well, we're in the business of enforcing the development code, right? We're not making subjective judgments about someone's choice of designs, other than it has to meet our objective design standards, and we should assess it against that code. And this is a case where we're making an exception to the 22 code, and have actually, previous agenda item recommended that it be changed to allow a use permit because of ambiguities. And yet this is a project that's benefiting from picking and choosing from old and new codes to do things that effectively violate today's code, but they were approved under the old code by somebody else. And so now we're going to revise our code again to accommodate a project that has sort of evolved, picking the niceties out of the codes as they have gone on. And I certainly understand how they've gotten the position they're at, but I do want to make sure, and this is questions for, I guess, the staff and the legal team, is how do we not let this become a case of, Peak got to do it, why don't we all get to, pick and choose the development code that we're going to, grab the nuggets that we want to use, so that down the road we can get the benefit of the new stuff, but also get all the benefits of the old stuff at the expense of building that's really taller than 40 feet and not just architectural or industrial features on the roof. It's a 48-foot building. And now we're going to add another 5 to it.
I think the pretty landscaping and the beautiful building is a benefit to the neighborhood.
Even if it violates the code.
But it doesn't.
If it were assessed solely under the 22 code today, it violates the code. But it was approved under the old code, except for the piece that we're now going to approve under the 22 code.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, we can blame Commissioner Helverson because he was the only one on this commission that was there at the time of the original approval.
But I do just want to offer one point of clarification. It was approved under the previous code, and this is the new code, and we're addressing the elevator shaft under the new code, but we don't pick and choose. The project scope's evaluated under the code that's in effect at the time. And again, if this was a brand-new entitlement, we wouldn't be picking and choosing. They would be subject to the 2022 code. So the project scope now is we're modifying the elevator tower to allow for that additional height through use permit approval with approved findings, and your commission's responsible for making those findings and moving this forward or making a different determination. But we are not picking and choosing.
We are not. I'm just saying this is a project that has, and how do we make sure that our decisions tonight don't open the door for that being a picking and choosing for anybody that wants to take advantage of the benefits of multiple codes in the future?
Well, I guess I would ask how many projects actually span that period of time that might come back to us?
Well, let's take this one, for example. If they were approved under the previous code and they were already built and under operation, and they came back and said, you know, now we'd like a rooftop deck and we would like an elevator to access said rooftop deck, and we recognize that there wasn't a use permit approval, we would be right back here allowing for them to have a rooftop deck, which our code allows for, and that elevator would need to access it. So your commission would be in the same space, but we're looking at this as not picking and choosing. They wouldn't be subject to the previous code, they're subject to the new code for a new feature on their private development. Other projects that do this, we have in our process what's called changes to an approved development. So any project or residential unit that's moved forward and built something, they might submit a change to an approved development to now allow for an upper story, second, floor deck. And the project itself's already been approved, but they realized during construction or after construction that they wanted an additional amenity or a feature for their own private enjoyment on their private property. And so they will submit for an application for change to an approved development. But under this scenario, it's a use permit that's being afforded to architectural features, and I liked the term you used, Chair Halverson. I did the same thing.
It's a habit. Here we go.
It will forever be ingrained in my mind because that's who you were when I started. But Commissioner Halverson, it's an appurtenance that we would look at and say, is there a need, is there a function, and why? And then your commission looks at that, makes the findings, and moves it along.
I would just say that the decision we made in item 3 to have this be something where we can all have a discussion about it, but part of that is looking at the context of the project. And that's why I'm thinking about, well, okay, what is the impact on the neighborhood? Well, who are the neighbors? Are there any residential units directly next to this project? No.
Only to the northeast.
Okay, so to the northeast, you're not between them and the ocean. I mean, there is a view to the dunes. I would call that a view as well. But I don't see this obstructing, it's like, who are the neighbors? What was there before? It was a bunch of trees. The people who are on the other side, what are the expectations here? And I don't feel that this is that. If this were in a different location, I might feel differently, but it's context. And in this context, I think it's worth doing. I think the pluses of having this company here, having these employees here, hopefully some of them are living in Grover Beach too, and being our neighbors, I think those far outweigh the extra, I don't even know if you calculate the cubic feet of it, right? It's 100 times 5 or 4. So from my point of view, it's a net plus to the community.
That's right. We're no longer in a situation where you should be happy to have a job, right? Now it's we are going to provide a nice job for you and a nice building to do it in.
Well,
no, I'm agreeing with you, actually. I think it's great for the future of business here.
I think employers should be able to decide what they need to retain their employees.
Yeah. Within the development code in the community.
So, anything else we want to discuss on this project? Are we ready for a motion? Who would like to make a motion on item 4?
I would like to move development application DA-25-0011 as submitted.
And I'll second.
Thank you for the second. Clerk Ratana, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Halverson?
Yes.
Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Swift?
Yes.
And Chair Mann?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
That's right, you should have gavelled all those people out of the room.
I should have gavelled you for
Supposed to be happy
clapping.
hands, glad
Didn't
hands.
go to the Karen Bright School of Gaveling.
There's no one else here.
I will request, in the interest, because we do have more of a meeting, if I may send you outside for your celebrations. We have a couple more items on this meeting, and we would like to get out of here too. So thank you so much for being here.
What's wrong with my mouse? Jeez.
Does it? See, I was... Because it's too high.
Too much
She was, I don't know how to... In reads, I thought it was 100 square feet per...
Oh, we do have I didn't realize item 5 also had public comment. Okay, all right. We got another item to go through, guys. Moving on to item 5, and I will put out a reminder to those of you still tuned in at home. If you'd like to call in for public comment on item 5, which is the general plan circulation element status update, please call in at 805-321-6639. So, moving on. Item 5 is this general plan circulation element status update. We will hear from Community Development Director Martin.
Thank you so much, and I'm also joined here by our Public Works Director, Mr. Greg Ray, as well as our consultant with LLG Engineers. His name is Zawar Saeed, so he'll be available for any technical questions you may have following my presentation. Tonight's staff has prepared a brief presentation to be provided as an overview of the progress that's been made to date on the city's update to the circulation element of the general plan. As a reminder, the purpose of the general plan circulation element is to guide the growth and expansion of transportation and circulation facilities within the city's planning area, as well as ensure that the current circulation system evolves in tandem with anticipated land use changes and community growth over the next 20 years. Staff has established a comprehensive strategy to implement the circulation element update with the goal to enhance mobility, safety, and connectivity for all modes of travel, vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle, transit, and trails, while aligning with state mandates and regional transportation planning efforts. And this effort will provide technical analyses and policy direction necessary to address existing challenges and prepare for future mobility needs. In June of 2023, the City Council received a presentation requesting policy direction on the circulation element update, along with a request for proposal to seek consultants to assist in the work effort. In August of 2023, the city received responses to that RFP, or request for proposal. However, all submittals exceeded the allotted budget for the element update. So during the summer of 2024, staff successfully identified a strategy for the project plan to reduce costs and reissued a revised RFP. And in the fall, the city also entered into a contract with Cal Poly of San Luis Obispo, as well as a transportation consultant, that is LLG, to initiate the first phase of the project. So to effectively guide the update of the circulation element, staff developed a strategic goal-oriented approach that ensures both technical consistency and policy alignment. This strategy is intended to provide a clear framework for evaluating the city's existing transportation network. It forecasts future needs, it identifies targeted improvements that all are inclined to support a safe, efficient, and sustainable circulation system. So the key objectives on your screen have been identified to structure the scope of work and guide decision-making throughout this entire update process. So again, that's evaluating the existing circulation system where we identify deficiencies, could be at a specific intersection, for example. We analyze the circulation system, we assess the capacity. So what is that current intersection carrying each day of vehicles, of pedestrians, of bicyclists? We strategize improvement opportunities. So based on the data that we collect, it's how do we then develop strategies for improvements? Is it wider bike lanes? Is it wider sidewalks? What is it that we can do in order to improve the circulation in that node of that system? We ensure that any strategies that we suggest are consistent with the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments Regional Transportation Plan, as well as any and all strategies that we suggest must address compliance with Senate Bill 743, and that's regarding transition from level of service analysis to vehicle miles traveled, depending on the type of project that's currently being assessed. So as I mentioned, the city entered into a contract with LLG, that's known as Linscott Long Greenspan Engineers. Again, we have a representative available on the line for any technical questions related to the technical analysis and support that they'll provide, the existing conditions report, the build-out conditions report, as well as the level of service and vehicle miles traveled traffic study that will be prepared as a deliverable for the project. We also contracted with City and Regional Planning Studio from California Polytechnic State University. This was with their City and Regional Planning Department, and their studio class, their undergraduate studio class, helped us with our existing conditions study as well as extensive community outreach. And I believe that started in September or October of 24 and ended in March of 2025. So in October 2024, staff created a webpage dedicated to sharing information with the community regarding the progress on the update to the circulation element. The webpage is regularly updated to include the latest information on the progress of the project and how community members can get involved. On October 16th, 2024, the city brought together regional agencies, organizations, and stakeholders to provide technical expertise and input on this update, with a strong emphasis on safety, multimodal access, regional plans, and regional coordination. So key themes from that discussion included alignment with the Road to Zero program, prioritization of collision and vehicle miles traveled data, enhancements to bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and planning for future mobility needs such as electric vehicles and evacuation scenarios. On October 18th, 2024, the city released a news flash announcing the launch of the circulation element update in partnership with Cal Poly. Cal Poly, as I mentioned, conducted extensive public and community outreach and assessed existing transportation conditions through tabling events, visioning workshop, bike tour, and participation in different local events, including, for example, the Halloween event, the Trunk or Treat that was last year. They attended all those and gathered valuable input from residents on travel habits, infrastructure concerns, and future priorities. That feedback will help inform the policies and programs that will be presented to your commission later this year and ultimately reach the City Council for their final decision. Staff also conducted an online survey that was made available from October 2024 to February of 2025. This was to gather input from community members, another way to reach folks who were unable to attend in-person workshops, and we collected a total of 76 responses. So key concerns identified included poor pavement conditions, limited pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, and excessive vehicle speeds at certain intersections and along certain roadways. The survey results highlighted a strong reliance on personal vehicles, but also demonstrated community interest in expanding safe, accessible options for walking, biking, and public transit. So what are our next steps? This is what we've completed thus far, and our next steps are to complete the technical studies that are required to update a circulation element. So following the collection of updated traffic data, the consultant will prepare the technical studies necessary to inform the update. Because West Grand Avenue has been under construction for quite some time, once that is complete, we, under the advice of both our Public Works Director as well as our consultants, we will likely wait about 2 months before we start collecting any traffic counts or traffic data. We may even wait until after the summer in order to not have inflated numbers of vehicles traveling up and down West Grand Avenue going to the dunes. We will once again engage with our technical advisory group. So once the technical studies are complete, we'll distribute those. And again, that's composed of representatives from our key partner agencies like the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments, Caltrans, the Regional Transit Authority, and our public works staff, as well as our police department and our fire department, our Five Cities Fire Department. Once the technical studies are complete, the city will prepare an initial study. So we'll engage in environmental review on the project, and that will evaluate the potential environmental impacts associated with our proposed policies and the improvements that could come out of those policies. We are looking forward to hosting the first, for me here, but possibly for all of you as well, although Commissioner Halverson, not sure if you participated in one of these with the code update, and Commissioner Holden, you as well, but a joint planning commission and city council study session. So a study session will be scheduled to present the results of the technical studies and summarize the feedback, and your commission along with our council will have the opportunity to provide input and feedback that we will then take into crafting the draft document that would be presented to you at a later date. So the draft circulation element and associated environmental review will be released for public comment. We likely will also have additional public outreach events in between all of these items that I've discussed. So once we have the technical documents, making them available in the public, asking for public comment, as I said, engaging with the technical advisory group, and then prior to the Planning Commission and City Council meeting, as well as after, before coming back to your commission. So just as much community outreach and engagement as we can to best inform this update for development into the future. Once that public review period has ended for the draft document, your Planning Commission will review the document and consider public comment and provide any feedback. That feedback will be forwarded to the City Council for adoption, along with the environmental review determination and all associated technical documents and materials. Because we are, portion of our community is within coastal zone, we will be required to seek local coastal program certification following the adoption. So depending on the results of the data collection and the policy direction, ultimately recommended by the Planning Commission and adopted by Council, we'll submit that LCP, which the Coastal Commission, I didn't mention this during the presentation, but that their staff would also be intimately involved throughout this process. Oh, and that concludes my presentation. That was quite a lot. If you have any questions, as I said, I'm available. I believe Senior Planner Bell is available on the line as well. And then we've got our team of technical experts also at your leisure and everyone else's leisure.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any questions for the staff, beginning with Commissioner Halverson?
I'm not the chair anymore? Okay, fine. I don't have any questions. I read through the document, the draft or the update, I guess, and yeah, there's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of, I don't know. To me, it's pie in the sky, sort of forced on us by the state as far as their goals about no more combustion engine cars and all that sort of thing, and trying to push people into public transit when obviously they don't care about public transit. To me, something's missing from this is the rapid adoption of electric bikes. Are they cars? Are they motorcycles? Are they bicycles? Do they get to go in the bike lane when they're going twice the speed of anybody with a pedal? I don't know. It's a missing component to me that's going to become more significant as time goes on. Anyway, aside from that, it's a work in progress, and I look forward to the joint meetings with the City Council. Those were fun, and that's it.
Commissioner Hoffman?
No questions.
Commissioner Holden?
I don't have any questions.
Vice Chair Swift?
I have no questions.
Oh, my God.
I'm shocked. I do have a question. In terms of public outreach, people do use the bus. Did any point did anyone, we have 4 bus lines that come through Gover Beach. At any point, did someone get on the bus to see how that is working or talk to the folks who ride the bus?
Specific engagement with those that ride the bus, I'm not sure. However, there was a bike tour that was led by the Cal Poly students and was attended by a rep from the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments. So I know that we had a bike representative public outreach or engagement session. But as far as specifics to buses, I'm not sure, unless Mr. Bell's looking to come on the line and let us know whether or not.
Yeah,
if he's available. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think that that's a great idea. We are involved with the Regional Transit Association, and they will be providing input on the plan as we move forward, and we'll also be involving them in some of our policy direction because they're making changes to their routes as well.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that as soon as the Atlantic City Avenue route opens up, I will try taking the bus to go grocery shopping, and I'll give you the feedback of how long it takes me to go grocery shopping.
Please do.
Yes, is Planner Bell on the phone there?
Oh, just Yvonne.
Did you want to speak to the bus and transit question?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think we should absolutely do a public outreach effort that involves transit. So I'm very excited about transit myself, and I would love to conduct that event. I think once we have the technical data and the existing conditions reports completed, I think we'll be able to initiate some more outreach, and I'm definitely going to take that one to heart.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will just add opinions to that front that Grover Beach, I believe, is the most densely populated city in the county. We currently have headways of 1 hour, and meaning the buses only come once an hour. So we're at about 55,000 people per square mile. At about 7,000 starts to be a point at which you can support more frequent bus service, which I think would be a positive, especially. And I would also like to make the case for having a shorter connection time to the number 10 bus from Grover. Right now, if you're in Grover, you either have to go a half hour out of your way all the way to downtown AG to go catch the number 10 bus at the outlet mall, which goes up to SLO or down to Santa Maria, or you have to go to Shell Beach, and that's still a half hour out of your way. So you can drive, like I can drive to work in 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes. I can get to work by bus in an hour 10. I would like to take the bus more frequently. I work off of South Higuera, the number 10 goes right there. And when I had work done on my car, I did take the bus, I gave it a go, met some lovely people. I met a woman who lives here in Grover, goes to Shell Beach, gets around to Pismo to get the number 10 bus, gets off at Los Osos Valley Road, walks to Target. Like, that's her commute there and back. And I'm like, we could make that easier for folks in Grover. Like, we're doing the work of, trying to figure out this housing thing, and we've got the density. So I think it'd be really good to have more qualitative data in the form of interviews, surveys of people who are actually riding the bus every day or frequently.
Yeah, as Senior Planner Bell mentioned, I can't agree more. I think it's a great idea. I also think that our efforts with that, as it relates to translating it to policy, is how do we collaborate best with the RTA in order to make those happen. So Grover can't necessarily create more bus lines, but we can sure advocate for it. And if we make it a policy that that we coordinate with the RTA to make that happen based on, again, qualitative and measurable data to get there, that's what we can put into this plan. And I'd also like to offer, if Sawar is available and would like to speak to anything related to obtaining that data, to offer him to join and to see how that might look as a policy moving forward. Happy to have him on.
Yeah, and the only other thing, which may not be related to the circulation element, but is related to buses, is the current system. If you're age 80 or over, you can get a year-long free bus pass, but you have to get yourself to downtown San Luis Obispo to get your picture taken. And I believe the RTA, and I'm like, couldn't they have a mobile photographer come down to an event and get people their bus passes? And the other piece is that the RTA does have, I believe, like transit kind of buddies to teach you how to use the bus. And I could see that being an advantage for someone who has never taken it before, doesn't know how it works. Or we could have some sort of session to or we could even, wouldn't have to be citywide, something from the city, but some sort of like social, connection that, okay, I'll be your bus buddy, let's go up to SLO and go hang out and then come back or something, just to get that first experience and get your confidence. And I think people would take it more frequently and realize it's a perfectly lovely way to get around. It's not scary. It works. Everybody's really nice. So anyway, that's my take on transit. Any other comments on this for the staff? I suppose this kind of turned into a talk amongst the commission as well. We didn't really open the public comment.
Not yet, but it is a business item, and so it is more akin to kind of the conversation around the project itself. But if you would also like to ask any questions of our consultant, he is also available for any technical questions that you might have. And again, speaking on consideration of policy for increasing bus routes. He may have some experience with that if you'd like to speak with him.
And what is his name again? I'm sorry.
Zawar.
Zawar, are you there on the line? Is there anything that you've overheard us talk about that you'd like to speak to?
Sure. Good evening, Honorable Chair and Commission. Yes, Megan, we can definitely look at the truck routes and transit and see what kind of demand it is based on the land use. And we have the slow cog model, regional travel demand model. We can look into that and see how it could benefit, or if you were to have more additional headways and bus lines, where it would be appropriate to put them.
I think it was a little, the line was a little fuzzy, but it sounded like it is possible to look into those increasing headways and look at the data that would help support better bus service for Grover Beach. Is that clear? Is that
correct?
All right,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the camera because
Yeah, we do have
I'm
the
assuming
traffic
you're,
model.
I don't know if you're just on your phone. Hi. Okay, so because there is, are there any other questions for Zawar? Do I have it right? Okay. Because there is a request for public comment here, I should open and close this. I'm opening public comment. I see no one in the room.
We have someone on the line.
But we do have someone online who'd like to speak. So let us move to that. Thank you for waiting.
Hi, this is Bill Ray, Grover Beach. I want to thank Miss Martin and Mr. Bell for all their work they've done. And I think if we go out to the public and get more information, rather than to call it a circulation study, we maybe should call it a traffic study, because some people look at circulation like, oh, I'm not going to go to the doctor. But when they see traffic, you might get more interest. As far as the bus stop at Atlantic City, since Atlantic City is a truck route, then there should be a stop sign at Atlantic City and Oak Park. I mean, that is a no-brainer. And if you're going to put that up there, it'll be safe for the buses and great for the neighborhood. Trust me, I had the data. And I'd like to hear the data from our consultant, not hear it, get a copy of the traffic counts. Thank you.
Thanks very much for calling in. Is there anyone else on the line?
No.
All right, I will close public comment. Commissioners, we did have a bit of a discussion. We have another option for that. Is there any further business we want to on this front?
It's still on. I would just like to compliment Chairman for running a very efficient meeting tonight. There was a lot of challenges, let's say, and you did a great job. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Is there a motion required for item 5?
No, this is
Okay.
simply just receive a presentation.
Okay, great.
A simple status update on the project.
Sorry, I thought we were in
Receive and file the status update. Okay, we have received and you will file the status update. We now have the last commissioner's comments, which I will run through the roll one more time.
I already did mine. That
Okay,
was
you're
it.
good?
I'm
Commissioner
good.
Hoffman, Commissioner Holden, Vice Chair Swift?
These are comments on item 5 or on?
After item 5, general, whatever, anything you've heard tonight, but not the stuff we've already voted on.
So I had a couple of notes I wanted, and maybe we sort of touched on it, but this is really, how do we get staff and the city council and the planning commission to engage some of these discrepancies that we're seeing in code, like the one we discussed at length tonight? What do we do to get that conversation going again, right? We revised the code in '22. We're seeing the result of that with our current development, and some of it is not positive result, but consequence, or at least for some of the community it is. So what's the process for going back through that again, now that we have 2 years and change of learning with the new code?
So last year in 2024, we brought forth a number of amendments to your commission, which were approved, and we moved those forward to the city council. As you recall, the Coastal Commission then kind of modified the process and said, hey, anything that's going to be modifying your ADU ordinance has to go to HCD before it can move forward to the Coastal Commission. That's fine. So we conducted our outreach to HCD. So right now, that process is coming back to your commission in either June or July, and we will be presenting the same 2024 Development Code updates as well as separately the accessory dwelling unit ordinance to your commission for consideration and the suggestions that we made based on what we've learned. Had this unique case, item 4, not come up, we likely wouldn't have seen this as an unintended gap in our code, and we wouldn't have seen that change move forward. But we really only find these gaps and these needed revisions when specific cases come in front of us and warrant the question, are we doing this right, or could this be improved? Or is everything working just fine? So that will be before you in June or July. Your commission can review those code amendments again. And make any additional suggestions that you'd like to see, and we will forward that to the City Council. I do need to caution you that anything that's outside the scope of what's previously been directed by the Council, as far as changes, would need to be done by, I don't actually know, voice vote or by a vote in general, that your commission, for example, would need to agree to send something and make a recommendation to the City Council separate from that. So if there's something, I can't even think of an example. My brain's been on overdrive all night, but if there's something that your commission agreed on, majority agreed on, that you'd like to see changed holistically with the 2024 amendments that's different than the scope the council already directed us on, then you could make that suggestion and council would consider it at the final adoption, local adoption of those code amendments.
Let me see if I understand your answer. It's this body making a recommendation to the council or to the staff?
To council.
To council,
Mhm.
to direct staff.
Staff works for council.
Okay. To direct staff to make revisions to bring back through that same chain again.
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to originate with the council.
It must originate with the council, correct.
And so the people who have issues with building heights, for example, should be really leaning on the council to engage the direction to staff and the
correct
planning commission to revise the code if they so choose.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. Yes.
So since we can't direct staff, my next question is also how do we get staff to do something?
I can bring you back all the information you
Okay.
want. I just can't.
Well, so
I just can't.
I think I've asked you or Kyle this before, and I think the answer was that's a lot of work and we don't have the staff resources to do it. But what I would really like to see is a high-low estimate on build-out, right? So when we talk about development and adding housing and adding certain types of housing to meet the RHNA numbers, we know with the changes that are being made to the ADU code and with the changes that are being made to the height codes to get more development, that we can now say, well, here's the underdeveloped and undeveloped lots, and here's the R1s that could feasibly put in, ADUs and things like that. What's the best estimate, high-low, on the available land in Grover Beach for meeting our build-out numbers in 2050, right? I mean, do we have a high probability of success? Are we in trouble and have to do more? And what do those numbers look like if everybody built an ADU and if 10% built an ADU, right?
So the best data that I can really provide is that, again, our San Luis Obispo Council of Governments exists for this exact reason. It helps us to develop our projected growth scenarios. And we can project high, we can project low, we can project kind of just middle of the road. Right now, all things kind of point for this county and this city in particular, but for this county and as a region, that we're seeing more people move out of the area. We're seeing, more, unfortunately, people displaced. There's mortality rates that we have to take into consideration compared with birth rates. Not meaning to go down a morose rabbit hole, but we're not seeing population increase across the county in numbers that we've seen with previous growth projections. And so what I can tell you is, yes, we have a land use model that we could project and estimate what total build out would look like. But right now, what SLOCOG is providing us is that at a baseline growth projection, we likely won't see meeting that 15,000 population by 2050, just based on the numbers that we're seeing right now. We should have more definitive numbers in the next few months before we actually get our definitive projections. Well, definitive projections, that's a little bit, sorry. But we should have those numbers from SLOCOG here in the next few months, and then I can make a more informed estimate for you based on that build out that you're looking for. But the best data we have right now is from SLOCOG. The next best data is our housing element, which identifies all of the different opportunity sites and zones for higher density housing, and where that build out might occur. But it really is your best guess. I mean, your neighbor might want an ADU, your other neighbor wouldn't. It wouldn't make sense for me to project that every single residential lot is now going to be built out with an ADU. And I don't know that there's a...
Right, that's the absolute unrealistic high, is that every single
Correct.
lot is going to put in an ADU, and all of our buildings on Grand are going to be 5 stories tall
Correct.
and 400 square foot apartments.
Correct. But again, just based on the staff resources that I have and that my team's capable of right now with the number of projects that we have, I don't have the resources to put it to that unless it's council directed. But I'm happy to continue to provide the data that's given to us by our regional partners, as well as rely on our planning documents that have already considered this and identified what our zoning requirements are. Our land use and our zoning requirements are that are currently implemented by our development code. Or I hire a Cal Poly student and they do it as their project, but I can't hire an unpaid intern, so.
Yeah. Because there was so much discussion about building heights with the public comment, one of the things so we made a choice to go higher on fewer parcels rather than go to 3 feet on more parcels. And part of that, I believe, was trying to avoid displacement. So I've been on this commission 2.5 years, maybe. We've approved, I think, over 200 units. I think there was one person that needed relocation assistance. Like, all of the projects have gone in where no one else was living. There was, I think, Encore had a house, but there wasn't anybody in it.
Right.
And I do want to I think it's worth looking at if we're going to, say we reduce a floor, we say we're not going to do 55 feet anymore, that floor has to go somewhere else. And that means it goes onto more parcels, probably where people are already living. And so I do want to think about that as well. What's the other thing that's on my mind? We're late. Oh, to the architectural piece of it. We have objective design standards, right? And you would think that because we actually can't, we can't reject a project just for how it looks, that the architects would start doing things that are more interesting. And maybe they're just so traumatized from the previous way of it was so easy to block a project because you didn't like how it looked. I mean, we heard tonight, some people want to see things that are a little more interesting, maybe a curve, maybe a color.
Some color.
Yeah. I mean, I get that, there is that, internationalist sort of style, right, which we're getting, which Mr. Sidorenko spoke to, of, this could be anywhere. And I think it would be kind of fun to think about, what is the architectural vernacular of Grover Beach? And while we can't, I'm not going to suggest we have an architectural review committee that nitpicks everything. I think we could at least let developers know, this is a place that's open to a little more fun, experimentation, things that are a little more funky. And, is there a way that is there a role for us as a commission to sort of have a letter of invitation for the kinds of, creativity that I do think that the community would support more. So.
Okay. Let me just respond to that. Because, these last buildings on Grand, they have come to us in their pre-design phase, and they've shown us the buildings, right? And it's the preliminary architecture, but it is what it is, and a lot of times they change it from there, but, and I'm not known for my artistic flair, so I didn't comment, but I think they're giving us the opportunity to give that input. We just have to take advantage of it. I mean, we talked about the dog areas and all that sort of thing, and dumb waiters and stuff like that. But as far as the overall, appearance of the buildings, I think we have an opportunity to do that if we take it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But I think that I have been afraid to express the aesthetics because, it's not something that I'm going to evaluate what is brought to us based on,
sure,
the standards we have. Sure. So I think it's a bit of a learning, process, right?
Well, they know that we can't reject based on
Chairman.
aesthetics.
Yeah.
This is veering away from comments and into discussion for an item that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Why don't we find a way to talk about this at another meeting? It is after 9.
Okay.
So thank you very much for that guidance.
Maybe agendize it for a future meeting.
Perhaps. We'll see what we can do about that. We do still have your
It would be a
report,
business
right?
item. If your commission by majority vote decided to agendize it at a future date, we would have it as a business item where we could talk about your options as a commission and what we can consider when looking at design projects.
Can I move to agendize that as a business item for a future meeting?
Well, I'm not sure.
It doesn't even require a vote so much as just consensus. So if 3 of you indicate that you would like to see that on a future agenda, then.
But what exactly would the agenda item be?
I think it's us, how we approach the pre-design stage to offer some unique architectural suggestions that, if they so choose, we would be happily supportive of those colors, architectural features, whatever it is, right, that we could actually.
That's a long title.
Agree to do it, right?
I see it as a discussion of the design standards. I mean, I think it's as simple as that.
Discussion of design standards.
Yeah, discussion of design standards, and staff can also bring you options for different, similar to this evening with item 3. Maybe it's just a policy that your commission would like to see an alternative design that's not just what's in concept by the developer, but what is an alternative architectural design that was considered. And so we can bring those kinds of options to your commission as part of the discussion.
Cool.
I would be interested in adding this as a business item to a future agenda.
It looks like there's a consensus.
Yep.
Great.
Can I have clarification? Would you like it to a date certain or to a date uncertain so that I can prioritize my staff's time to prepare a presentation for you?
I mean, I would think before.
I'm more than happy to have it be June 3rd. I just.
I don't want to put any pressure on you, so.
Is everybody here June 3rd?
I'm not here June 3rd.
July.
That would be July the 1. That gives you
Uncertain. Date uncertain.
You'd prefer uncertain? Okay.
I mean, we can wait until we're all here.
Because you'll be gone on the 1st.
Oh, I don't know. If we're all here on the 1st, we could do it. I mean, maybe.
I do
haven't
not
solidified my
have
summer
travel plans for the 1st.
Oh, I'm tired.
If I might suggest, I believe we're feeling pretty good about bringing the development code and the ADU ordinance back to you in June or July. So why don't we have this as an August item? And I feel comfortable saying that, confident in saying that, because I do not believe that we'll have another mixed-use project in front of your commission before then.
Okay.
But if for any reason I do get wind that we might see something, I'll add it to the July date. But if we do date uncertain, that gives us a little bit more flexibility, but I'm happy to come back in August, no later than August.
Right, then I think that is fine, date uncertain.
Okay.
And yet, there's one lone item left, which is your report. I digressed. I apologize.
Thank you. I don't know that I have anything to report to your commission this evening. I think you've done an incredible job, every single one of you, and just thank you for the policy direction. It just makes my team's job easier. So thank you. And if you have any questions on any development in the area, let me know, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
There's an event this weekend.
There is.
Strawberries through Grover Beach.
Strawberries through Grover Beach, that's
And
right.
a
As
bike
well as
thing.
bike tour.
The bike
I
through
thought that
Grover.
was next weekend.
Isn't that this weekend?
It's
Never
next
mind.
weekend?
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
unfortunately out of town.
2 weekends.
But that should be a lot of fun.
All right. With no further business before this commission, I adjourn this meeting at 9:15.